Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
No. It's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a voiceover artist, host, producer, writer, and numerous things here in Los Angeles, California. That's my life, paying the bills. That's my life.
I've noticed it always sort of trails off. It starts off with a lot of steam, and then you feel like there's always like one more thing you should list, and then it's
because I'm waiting for that one more thing to be able to say, and I don't have it yet. I haven't accomplished it yet, so I feel like I've got this like the little engine that could, and I haven't got to the top of the mountain yet. And I'd like to, and I get there, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I forgot, I don't have that thing at the top of the mountain yet.
How about professional lacrosse player?
Sure. High player. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
Boom.
That is a crazy sport. But we have a guest today who we are ignoring because we are welcoming back our most frequent guest, once again, animation producer, writer, Michael Vogel. Welcome back to the Cine-Files.
I wanted to be like, I'm an animation producer and writer. So I had something that trailed off too, but I only have the two things.
Well, you used to be an executive.
Used to be an executive.
You're an ex-executive.
XX.
Yeah.
I'm an XX.
Yeah, but you've made the post-executive life work for you. Like, a lot of people become executives and they hunt the next executive job whenever whatever happens, either they leave or they get fired. But you've, like, created a whole separate life outside the executive world where they almost respect you even more than they did before.
I mean, the best thing in the world is going to Burning Man and having a spiritual experience and coming back and quitting your job. It really works out. Like, that is, I am the living proof that... it can
Top
work
10
out well
does not
for you.
condone this. These are the points of views of Michael Vogel.
I don't know of a lot of people who have gone from executive to the creative side the way you have.
I guess that's true. I guess there's not a lot. It was definitely a fun jump. I like it way more on this side. You get to work at home and sit in your underwear and agonize over.
I was literally going to say the same thing.
Yeah,
the pants are optional.
Pants optional. It's pants optional jobs. I have discovered are the best jobs that you can have in life.
Having stayed with Michael at Comic-Con, I understand. Pants optional is a way of life.
Yeah.
God, I love it when you say something and I think of like 5 stories that I could tell that would be super embarrassing, and then I realize that I'm your guest on the show, so I can't actually say them. But I have stories if anybody would like to hit me up later on Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Patreon.
Oh shit! Wouldn't that be a story? Yikes!
And we have brought Michael back because one of our favorite episodes was with him, which was for Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, and today we are doing the sequel, Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back.
That's right. In honor of The Last Jedi.
In honor of Last Jedi, which is coming out.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we cannot move forward in this saga without Michael Vogel.
And I was really excited because I literally can't do anything else right now except think about Star Wars until we go to see the movie. So I'm kind of obsessing over it. So might as well sit and talk about it with you guys because that's all I'm going to be thinking about anyway.
And we're a little bit over 24 hours away from going to see it.
Yeah,
right? A little bit over. Yeah,
Yep, a little bit over
tomorrow night.
How many are rolling in our crew?
We bought tickets to see Last Jedi at the Grove, and we bought 65 tickets. Wow! So there's 65 people going to see the movie together.
66, like order 66, which would be perfect.
Oh God! You know what? Now I really want to go find another ticket just so we can be order 66.
That's awesome. Michael, do you remember how you first saw The Empire Strikes Back?
I actually do. It's one of my earliest movie memories, and it's kind of embarrassing, but the thing that I remember the most about it is my dad took me to see Empire Strikes Back as a young father, super excited to take his son to see this amazing sequel, and I got really, really scared. So around...
You were like 3, right?
Yeah. So I was scared.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, I still actually remember this. He was like super into the movie, and I remember turning to him. And, I know what it was. What are they called? The pig aliens. They're
the porgs.
Not the porgs. The porgs are amazing, and they're going to be awesome. No, on Cloud City, there's the alien race that are the pigs.
The like minor.
Yeah, and I can't.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
know the name because they're in the comics a lot. But at any rate,
Your nerd
my nerd card is going down. But they freaked me out. Boba Fett didn't freak me out. Darth Vader, I was fine. Those little guys scared me, and I made my dad leave and take me home before he got to experience the big reveal of like the biggest reveal in movie history.
Wow.
That's surprising.
So I remember seeing it. That's my earliest memory, and then obviously later in life watched it multiple times.
What about you?
It's the first time I ever went to see a Star Wars film in the theater. I made my parents take me because I had seen, like we've talked about, I saw A New Hope on TV on CBS, Movie of the Week or ABC Movie of the Week. And so I was like super jazzed to have my parents take me to the theater. So we went and saw it. And I didn't I got it, but I didn't get it. You know what I'm saying? Because I was still young enough to be like wowed by everything. But the father thing was confusing to me because he kissed his sister and like it was I couldn't
Well, you
process.
didn't know that it was his
You
sister.
didn't know it was his
I
sister
didn't
till
know,
Jedi.
right? But that whole thing is like I don't know, because they're having the love triangle, right? So you're like, well, why is she kissing him? So it just was an interesting exploration.
So
and
love triangles confuse you.
yeah, well, they did at the time, yeah, because I was told only one woman ever for the history of my life. I was growing up Catholic, but but that whole thing, and then later on with the dad stuff. So, but for me, I just remember the expanse of the movie, and I love the AT-AT stuff is what I remember most. The swinging around with the cable and tripping them. To me, as a kid, that was amazing. Something this size could fall down like that, and the Falcon and the stuff, and that huge ass creature that comes out of the hole and almost bites the Falcon as it's escaping. So there are a lot of images that have stayed with me from the first time I saw it, and Chewie's yell when the doors close at the beginning of Hoth. So those things have always they're like touchstones for me. And then rewatching it again for the podcast, which is like the millionth time we rewatched it, those touchstones still move me, and especially the dad stuff. My God, that still gets to me.
Yeah.
By the way,
yes.
Ugnaughts.
There you go.
Ugnaughts.
Just so I regain a little sliver of my cred. Ugnaughts.
I didn't want to correct you, but
I would never have gotten that. And this is the thing is I know sometimes I feel my job on this show is to like bring a lot of knowledge.
Right.
I'm not the biggest. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I don't have a lot of Star Wars geek cred. Like I would never have come up with Ugnaughts.
Oh,
I don't. Yeah, I like my knowledge doesn't run that deep.
understood.
You don't go past like Ewoks and Gamorrean guards.
No, that's about it for me. Yeah.
Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, because I wasn't the toy collector.
Okay.
I didn't actually read the comic books. I didn't read Star Wars books. I knew the movies, but I didn't like go in deep like if this were a Star Trek podcast.
But like IG-88.
What's IG-88?
What?
Oh wow.
The bounty hunter that's in the movie with Boba and
Oh, okay.
Bosk, yeah, the lizard guy. I always
See,
forget the lizard
That's
guy's
what I'm
saying.
saying. I don't have all these names at my fingertips.
I was more saying
I had a lot of toys.
Yeah, I never had the toys. I saw it in the theater. I'm pretty sure I saw it opening day.
Oh wow.
Which I also saw. I know I saw Jedi opening day, and I'm pretty sure I saw this. And it just was, this movie was everything to me. As was Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars, and the thing we should talk about. I don't think there had ever been anything like this kind of a sequel, because there had never been a movie like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most successful film of all time. It had come out of nowhere. We're at the end of the 70s, and previous to this time, sequels I think had been different.
Yeah.
Which is, you look at Jaws 2, or you look at the James Bond ones are the
There
only
was
ones.
French
that maybe
Connection too. There
Yeah,
was.
it's like-
I mean, Godfather 2 was really the only good one that you could argue.
Yeah. Most of the time, sequels, the job of it, or even later on, you have like Die Hard 2 and Beverly Hills Cop 2 and all these. Their job is to recapture whatever the first one did. And the end of those movies have endings which are endings. Mm-hmm. And you're done. And then you have to figure out, how am I going to get John McClane back into a horrible situation? Right. How am I going to get another shark to come and attack people? And this movie is really, really different, what they attempt to do, which is to create a franchise. And in particular, I think the biggest thing, we'll talk about it a lot, is they knew they were making a third. So they don't have to end it the way that all those other movies have to reach. Because you get in this weird thing, like the Die Hard movies are a perfect example of, we have to tear everything apart and then bring everything back together, and then in the next movie figure out how to do it again. Yeah. And it doesn't really work as well. And that's not what this movie's trying to do.
No, that's what I liked about this movie, is that it introduced a bunch of new characters that were immediately legend, in the Star Wars lore, and you deepened the Darth Vader thing. Like you start off with, in the first film, of course, Vader is scary, but in this film, he's like killing people left and right. Like, this is a bad HR guy. Like, just whatever. If you don't satisfy him, like, you're dead. You know,
that's the strangest
just
metaphor
saying.
for Darth Vader.
I'm just
You're
saying,
really bringing some of your own stuff to this analogy.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of cases with this guy.
I think I probably talked about this when we discussed Star Wars, A New Hope, but I think one of the other things that's interesting is when you think about it, even today, every other massive geek franchise that is discussed, whether it's the DC universe or the Marvel universe or Harry Potter or any of those things, even Star Trek as a movie franchise was based on something previous. There was a TV show, there was a book, there was a novel, and so I think what was cool, and I think what I don't have as much because I only saw it later in life, but what was cool is like going to see this franchise level movie with these characters, and things happened that like fucked your shit up. Like, this wasn't just like, it's another great adventure. You're like, wait, what's happening? Yeah. Who got, like, it was like brutal. Like, it's like, this is crazy. You're taking these beloved characters that you thought had gotten through this thing, and it was like, this shit got real.
Yeah. And you go from like what we had in the first film, right, which was a sandy planet, and the way it all ends, but then in this film, you're like, snow planet, you got a swamp planet, you got a planet or a city in the sky, a cloud city. So there's so much about it that was so interesting for a kid's fascination or imagination, rather.
They expanded the universe in terms of locations.
Yeah.
They expanded the universe in terms of characters, and they expanded the universe in terms of depth of character and in terms of humor, which happens really differently in this film.
And their relationships are stronger.
Absolutely.
Because right from the beginning, it's Luke and Han out there. All of a sudden now they're just like, they're friends now, and you get that, and they're out hunting together, or like doing their rounds or whatever recon that they're doing, and then when stuff happens to Luke, it's Han who goes out to try to save him.
Let's do a little bit about pre-production. I think there are two huge, important decisions that George Lucas makes that are totally unique, I think, in terms of film. The first one is he decides to finance it independently. He's got so much money from Star Wars, and particularly from the merchandising, and he goes, I don't want to have to deal with the studios. I want them to release the movie, so he takes out a $25 million loan.
Wow.
Yeah. This is breaking the basic Hollywood rules.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars, they are the most expensive indie films of all time.
Yeah, yeah, they are. I mean, that's so first, and starts off as a $25 million movie. It goes $10 million over budget, and the bank wants to call in the loan. Like, there's a certain point where Lucas could lose everything on this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so that is an amazingly ballsy move.
But that makes sense because his friends at that time are people like Spielberg and Coppola. Coppola had just done the same thing a few years earlier with Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Like, and Coppola was his mentor. Like,
right.
Not in a way that like he was way older than him, but Coppola had this older kind of approach to film, and so they always went to Coppola to talk stuff
That's
out,
right.
and so Coppola would guide him and Spielberg all the time, and so it makes sense. He probably told Lucas on numerous occasions, if you really give a shit about it, bet everything on it, which is scary as hell.
And the other big decision I think he makes that is just fascinating is he's not going to direct it.
Yeah.
When has that ever happened? Guy directs the most successful movie of all time. We're going to make the sequel. And he goes, no, I'm going to produce it, but I'm going to get someone else to direct it.
Right.
I mean, there are ones where someone has walked away and not been on the project, but not where they haven't.
Or even in the recent one, Kathleen wanted another director for the second one.
Right.
And JJ said, okay, I'll EP. And so it's not usually where you willingly walk away from the situation. It's more a matter of like you negotiate something or you get fired, right? Or they don't want you back or you're too expensive. But in this case, yeah.
And I think most of us agree that really good decision.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not taking anything away. I mean, like, listen, it's one of those things. George Lucas, again, and we've talked about this before too, but he, for whatever you're gonna say about the prequels or your issues with George Lucas's creative choices, like he single-handedly created one of the greatest, hugest, biggest movie universe franchises and basically built the blockbuster. So all props to him. All that being said, the movie that we're about to talk about would not be the movie it is had that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really smart decision. And he brings in a really interesting choice to direct it, which is Irvin Kershner.
Yeah.
Who I mean, first of all, he was his teacher at USC.
Yeah, it was Lucas's teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for one of my students to hand me, the keys to a giant franchise to direct a huge movie. It hasn't happened yet.
Would you really want that? Where the
Of course.
student is all of a sudden telling you what to do, is EPing you? You'd
Yes.
be okay with that? All right.
If a
I'm all
student
right.
handed me Star Wars
All
and
right.
said direct the next Star Wars,
I'm gonna go.
That's a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
go-
pressure.
I'm gonna go back to Gainesville and ask my high school physics teacher, Miss Boer, to write an episode of My Little Pony. So,
Oh, wow.
well, she'd do great. She was a great teacher.
she was a great teacher, Miss Boer. If you're out there, Miss Boer, good job.
Yeah. Props to Mrs. Boer. And
Hashtag, yeah.
and Irving Kershner, he directed things like The Return of the Man Called Horse and Eyes of Laura Mars, and they're all these sort of indie, quirky, none of them huge movies in any way, and he gets handed the keys to this giant spectacle, which, by the way, he said no to at first.
Of course
and
he
then, and then his agent said, "No, you're gonna do this," and he ends up being a really, really good choice.
Yeah.
Apparently, Lucas did write a script. I'm assuming that is not a good one, being that he's not a very good writer.
Well, what does that mean? Do you mean that they used another script for this?
Of
Let's
cour-
talk about this.
Of course, because they bring in Lawrence Kasdan.
Right.
And I think he is one of the heroes of Empire Strikes Back.
So Kasdan, does he write it from scratch or does he use George's?
Well, this is
as
what
a
I don't know.
template? Yeah.
I think because when in Lucas's in interviews with him, he talks about the script that he was writing for Empire, and then Kershner says Kasdan wrote the script from scratch.
Wow.
And Kasdan says, I wrote the script. He never mentions anything about a Lucas script. so what the relationship between these scripts are, I don't really know.
Right.
And I have heard that, and this is just hearsay of talking to people out here, but that the Empire is Lucas's least favorite Star Wars movie.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's true or not, and so George can call me and tell me if I'm wrong. But what I've heard is that maybe because he had written what he wanted Empire to be, and then the movie that ended up becoming Empire is not, to some degree, we don't know how big or how small what he thought it was, so it's never quite sat right with him.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of, as an EP, I wonder how much his approval of the story points was important in the process as they went along. Like, who came up with the idea of Luke being his father? Like, obviously, that wasn't something Lucas necessarily had thought ahead of with New Hope. So,
What?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's
Well,
right.
this was a whole discussion we had when we talked about A New Hope,
Yeah.
was what did Lucas know and when did he know it? And
Right.
it seems like he knew some of it. Certainly didn't seem to know all of it.
Right.
And Kasdan is obviously a great writer. The first screenplay he sold in the mid-70s. It was The Bodyguard for Diana Ross and Steve McQueen. And that movie went into development hell for 20 years.
Wow.
Before they finally made it with Costner and Whitney Houston.
That's insane. I didn't
Isn't
know that.
it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's his script. And then he gets hired first to write Raiders. And then while he's working on Raiders, that's when they hand him Empire. He's such a great writer director and has that great wit and understands genre in a great way. And I really think he's one of the people that really makes this the movie that it is.
He has such a distinct voice too. I like listening to him interviews. He's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, when I was doing Empire, and you're just like, oh my god, this is incredible.
Yeah. Shall we dive into the film?
it.
Yeah.
Again, that starts with that great John Williams chord.
There's nothing better. In the
Well,
world.
and actually, I mean, I was just talking about this the other day with somebody. John Williams is just one of the greatest heroes of all film, as far as I'm concerned. But he does Star Wars, and he comes up with one of the most iconic movie scores of all time.
Right.
And then just goes ahead and doubles down and comes up with like 3 or 4 new themes for Empire that are just you got the Yoda Force theme, you've got the Han and Leia love theme, you've got the Imperial March,
Imperial
all these
March,
things.
man.
And you're just like, how do you? I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand how these. It just keeps getting better.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who we've spoken about the most on the Cine-Files, but John Williams is up there.
Yeah.
Because we talked about him about Superman and Star Wars. We talked about him about
You did
Jaws.
Jaws.
We talked about Raiders.
Right.
I mean,
and Superman.
yeah.
That's John Williams' score too, which he did with Michael. Yeah.
It just you never stop. Like, I don't know if it's going to get boring us saying this guy is one of the great geniuses of film of all time, but he is.
I think he's untouchable, and everyone knows it, so they enjoy any accolades about him.
Yeah. We get a scroll. This is the first time, by the way, we see an episode number, episode 5, which Lucas always wanted, and the studio on Star Wars had said, no, we can't do that. That's crazy. And now we get to some destroyers, and they're sending out some droids.
Yep.
Down to the ice planet of Hoth.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I believe in the scroll we do get that Vader is now obsessed over Luke.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Like that's
right.
one of the key things about it is that Darth Vader has become obsessed
Yeah.
with Luke Skywalker after he blew up the Death Star.
Right.
And we go to a top-down shot of a little tiny Luke on a little tiny Tauntaun. Some nice little stop motion in front of really beautifully painted background matte paintings.
Yeah.
It looks very cold.
Yes. It's an ice planet.
They shot it on a glacier in Norway.
Holy crap.
It's like 20 below.
Good God.
It sounds brutal.
Yeah. No wonder Irving didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Well, and apparently there's a scene in it where a little later where Luke is running away from the Wampa, where it's in a huge snowstorm. They had woken up that morning and there was such a huge blizzard. There was like a bank of snow right in front of the hotel. They couldn't really leave the hotel. So what they did was they sent Luke in costume, just running away from the hotel, and they all stood in the doorway with the camera shooting because they didn't want to go outside, and the cameras would freeze. So they all stayed where it was nice and warm and made
amazing.
Mark Hamill just run out into the snow. It was cold. Luke sees something kind of go down in the distance. He gets on the radio with Han and says, I'm going to go check this out. Goes off to do that and gets attacked by the Wampa. This arm comes out of nowhere and hits him in the face. Oh, this scared the crap out of me.
Oh, yeah.
I had this toy.
Oh, did you?
I think you always like. I like
Wampa
with Star
toy,
Wars.
yeah.
I had this is a. I don't know if they did it with New Hope, but they had all these little die-cast sets. So you would get like a little panorama, like a little mini play set, and then you would get like the little metal. So I had a metal Wampa and I had a metal Luke that you could hang upside down inside of it.
Oh,
and
that's
do a whole
awesome.
thing. It was
wow.
really, really awesome.
I remember this commercial. I remember that toy. Yeah.
So Luke gets captured by the Wampa.
Yeah. We go back to the Rebel base. Han comes riding in, and you could see right here, this is a bigger movie.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big set, and it looks really cool.
And once again, you get the relationship there because they have communications between them as they're before Luke gets hit. There's this back and forth. And Luke wants to stay out there, which is, of course, one of those things about Luke. Luke is always looking to push the boundaries of what he can do. He always wants to do an extra little bit to prove he belongs, to prove he's a worthy whatever. And so that just makes so much sense. Han does what he does, and he's rolling. He's rolling. That's Han. That's perfect Han. He's not going to stick out there and waste any extra time doing anything.
And they do an interesting thing here because, you get to the end of New Hope and Han Solo has now like stopped being a solo guy.
Sure.
And he came back and he helped Luke and he kind of, quote unquote, joined the rebellion. And so right off the bat in this movie, even though he's been with the rebellion however long it's been between the two movies, he's been doing it. The very first thing he does is kind of say, all right, I'm out of here. I got to go pay Jabba.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, and so you kind of get him right back to, even though he's a hero and he's a good guy, they set him right back to, I'm my own person. I've been here a little bit, but I'm not part of your rebellion. I got my own life to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, and who is he most aware of, I would say, in the scene where he's saying he's leaving?
Well, he's aware of Leia, and also Leia's throwing some looks his way. Like you, and it's one of those amazing things. Like without a ton of dialogue, you instantaneously get that this relationship has progressed.
Yeah. Well, and we don't quite know how it's progressed, but there are looks going on there, and it seems to me, and this is part of my question is he saying he's leaving because he's leaving, or is he saying he's leaving because he wants Leia to say stay?
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. Because she's not giving him an inch. She's giving nothing. He's like, we need you. We need you? No. What about you need?
Or what about you need?
I know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Probably don't.
And what precisely am I supposed to know?
Come on. You want me to stay because of the way you feel about me?
Yes, you're a great help to us. You're a natural leader.
No. That's not it. Come on. Come on.
You're imagining things.
Am I? Then why are you following me? Afraid I was going to leave without giving you a goodbye kiss?
I just assumed it's a Wookiee.
I can arrange that. You could use a good kiss.
Yeah. princess.
Well, and again, and this is what's amazing about Star Wars and Princess Leia as a character is, you know, we've gone through years and years and years of female representation on film and the Bechdel test and everything else. And yet here you have this character who, this is not the girl who's crying and saying, oh, but I want you to stay because I love you so much. Like, if anything, Han needs a lot more emotional attention than Leia.
Oh,
she's not given an inch. And she's like, I'm not dealing with emotions. We got shit to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, continue, like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I don't know why watching it this time, it hit me so hard of like, Han Solo is petulant, needy, arrogant, insecure, like all of this. And it's particularly with this, he's so desperate for Leia's love and for approval and not to look bad. And on the one hand, he's a great hero. And on the other hand, he's got all this stuff that's coming out. Yeah, it's hilarious to watch.
Well, he's a scoundrel. So he's going to do those things. He's going to be that way because he'll never run his own thing, but he'll dance around in this Peter Pan-like existence where he rebels constantly against authority, where he shoots his mouth off, questions everything. You know, he just has his way of existing.
Except that I think the thing that's great about Han Solo is, I think if you ask Han Solo, he'll tell you very loudly that he's a scoundrel. Yeah. Although every single thing he does actually goes against that. Like, Lando Calrissian's a scoundrel.
Right.
And I love Lando, but we'll get to it later. But, like, he does some scoundrelly things. Han, he's like, I'm a scoundrel, I'm a bad guy, but I've been helping the rebellion for a long time, but I'm out of here, I don't need you. But also, like, are you jealous? Because I feel like you want me to stay, and if you want me to stay, like, I'll do it. And I mean, so it's just like, he's the nicest, most lovable scoundrel that there's ever been.
Absolutely. Well, and I think he's desperate for love and approval, and he's putting on the veneer of scoundrelness to protect himself from getting hurt.
Sure.
You know, and then as soon as you give him love, he's right there for you, you know. He actually doesn't want to be a scoundrel. Yeah. Well, he wants people to think he's a scoundrel.
He's not a scoundrel. He is a nerf herder.
Okay. Scruffy looking.
Scruffy looking. We see R2 and C-3PO again. And of course, they're about to leave, and Chewie is now taking apart stuff on the Falcon. Yeah. Which also makes me go, like, was he really planning on leaving? Or was he not? And that's when we hear that Luke has not come back. Yeah. That we can't find him.
You know where Commander Skywalker is? I haven't seen him. It's possible he came in through the south entrance.
It's possible. Why don't you go find out? It's getting dark out there.
Yes, sir.
And immediately you see the switch in Han Solo's character. Immediately. Now and you see the leadership. You say, well, go find out. And now he's going to get on a Tauntaun. He's going to ride out to look for him.
Again, I have to leave. I'm a selfish person. Oh, my friend hasn't come back. Nobody else will go outside. And then he's like, well, then I'll see you in hell. And he goes out there. Like, so again, not really a scoundrel. Kind of an awesome guy.
That I'll see you in hell is great.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just a great moment.
Your Tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker.
Then I'll see you in hell.
We get to Luke in the position of your toy.
Yes. Every time I watch the movie, I'm like, that's no toy. That's my toy.
He's hanging upside down. And this is the first moment that we see Luke use the Force in this way. And it's so small and so cool and was so exciting to me as a 12-year-old. Like him reaching out for that lightsaber, and it's starting to shake in the ice and snow. And is he going to get it in time? Right. And you see the shot of the Wampa. It's different. By the way, of course, we know there are different versions of this film.
And by the way, this is one of the, as far as all the things that George Lucas did when he made the adjustments to the original trilogy, this is one that actually I think is a solid one, and it's fine. Like it actually, it's a cool shot of the Wampa. You get to see him a little bit more clearly than you did. Like there's some things that he did that I really don't love, but most of the changes he made in Empire were solid, and this was one of them.
Yeah, I think Empire comes pretty unscathed, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing about the moving of the lightsaber, that echoes into Force Awakens. That move, and there's things that are laid out in Empire Strikes Back that will color every other installment of Star Wars that comes afterwards. There are things that they do in Empire Strikes Back that you can see echoing through. And that is one of those movies that was unique when we watched it the first time, but we've seen it so many times now.
Yeah, I totally agree. The lightsaber comes to him. He cuts himself out from the ice. The Wampa's coming to get him. He cuts an arm off, and he is away. We're back at the base. All patrols are coming in. They're going to close things down. There's a great moment, by the way, where two of the rebel guys are talking about that Luke hasn't come back, and they're like, "Oh, keep your voice down because Princess Leia is right over there.
And this is where you get your Chewie yell that you were talking about.
Yes.
This is that awesome moment.
Because they have to close the doors because the Empire's or the Empire's like they spotted them or they.
No, I think
them?
this is just too cold.
No, it's just
isn't
too
it?
cold?
Yeah, just
Okay.
at night you have to close the thing because it's too cold, and like they're like nobody's gonna survive out there. It's too cold, and you kind of get. Because you get those two rebel guys talking about Leia, so you see that Leia is clearly worried about both of them. Yeah. You got 3PO just being like, let me tell you the odds about how they're not going to survive. You got R2 sad beep, and then you got Chewie's yell. So you kind of touch in with each of your main, kind of this little family that's formed, and see how they all feel about these two being trapped out there.
Actually, R2 has been known to make mistakes. From time to time.
And it's a great emotional and kind of sonic sound build to the moment of the door closing and Chewie's yell.
Yeah.
And we see Chewie's character got a lot deeper. The relationship between him and Han got solidified in this movie.
They bicker like a couple a lot more in this movie than they did. Like there was a little bit of that in the first one, but this is where you get that relationship really, really clearly.
It's a lived-in relationship.
Also Chewie's hair looks a lot better in this movie.
Does it?
It I mean, like when Chewie in the first one kind of has got a really kind of flat round hair down look, and all of a sudden this one you start looking at it and his hair's in his face and he's got things going on, like he's got some more style. He's a little bit more scruffy. Kind of like,
what kind of product do you think?
It's
uses?
Clearly L'Oreal. A little bit of Vidal Sassoon.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're back to Luke, who's stumbling through the snow. He's clearly freezing. He falls down,
and he has the vision.
Yep, he's falling down, and the vision is of
Luke.
Yeah.
Now, how much of this was added by? Was this always there? All the stuff, because sometimes when you watch something, certain things hit you in a certain way. Like how
Ben?
much of
No, this was always there.
All the Ben stuff was there. Okay.
No, always there from day one.
All right.
Well, first of all, I think Alec Guinness is dead by the time he did the special edition.
So. No. I know that, but it could have been stuff he shot and then added in or whatever.
Right.
No, this was always there.
Yeah. And so he has that vision, and we have Han out looking
and tells him to go see Yoda.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
Right.
Important bit of information there, which is you've got to go see Yoda on Dagobah.
Right.
And as Ben is telling him to go to Dagobah, what do we see?
We see Han.
We see Han. Han arrives and goes through the vision
Yeah.
At the last minute when Luke's at his end. And by the way, I was one of the commentary tracks has the sound guy, and I love some of the sound stuff. The Tauntaun sound is a sea otter.
Oh,
Is it?
Yeah.
that makes sense. Having watched enough of those documentaries.
And as Han goes to run to Luke, Tauntaun goes down.
Yeah.
And we don't really care that much about him. And Han's choice to keep his good friend warm is one of the grossest things I had ever seen in my life.
And
Yeah.
also, important thing, the inside of a tauntaun looks like rice pudding.
What?
Just so we're all clear. Like every time I've ever eaten rice pudding in my life, I go, that's tauntaun guts. Just so everybody can think about that.
Thank you for ruining rice pudding for all of the
Ew.
Cine-Files listeners.
Yeah.
Like that just he and also Han uses the lightsaber, which I thought, like when I was a kid, I thought that was super cool.
Super cool.
Like Han like grabbed it and was like, oh, he can use it too, and he like slices them open, and that really and the rice pudding comes
so
out,
awful.
and then he crawls inside.
I thought they smelled bad. On the outside.
Yeah.
On the inside.
Next morning, we got a pilot out looking for him. Very important in filmmaking that they're calling out on the radio. You don't have them answer back right at the first time, not right at the second time, and then they answer back and good morning.
And you also do get a sense in that shot just the vastness of this place.
Yeah.
You know, you see that snow speeder like flying out over everything, and it's just like, man.
Yeah.
We're back to the base. We're in this medical lab. Luke is in some water thing. I think because he has like
It's a bacta tank.
Back to tank.
See, I
Just
don't know all these
just
things.
just in case you were curious.
Yeah. No, well, keep giving me these names. I don't know them all. He's doing a lot better, and Han comes to check on him, and
also, by the way, just important bit of behind the scenes stuff is this is how they dealt with the whole Mark Hamill motorcycle accident.
Oh, right.
so that is so Lucas says it's not, but everyone else says it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he had been injured in an accident. His face looked a little different, and this is a way to get around it.
Yeah.
Yep.
When
Makes
you
sense.
were a kid, did you notice that he looked different?
I didn't really notice that he looked different, so probably it was a bunch of people behind the scenes kind of maybe overthinking stuff, but it is kind of an interesting...
I noticed he did. And he looked older. He looked more weathered. And so that to me just added to the character that he was doing. So I didn't know anything about the accident, though, until years later, the motorcycle.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Because he'd done Corvette Summer in between both these films. And I think it was on one of the breaks from Corvette Summer that he got into
is
the
that what it
accident.
is?
Yeah, I think so.
And of course, Leia's there, and Han is still continuing to play these odd games with Leia.
Yeah.
Well, Your Worship, looks like you managed to keep me around for a little while longer.
I had nothing to do with it. General Rykin thinks it's dangerous for any ships to leave the system until we've activated the energy field.
That's a good story. I think you just can't bear to let a gorgeous guy like me out of your sight.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
And then also we get the weird thing that when you look at the bigger trilogy and the Skywalker family tree, you get this weird kiss that has always just been a weird one for everybody.
Yeah, because it wasn't just a peck. She grabbed his face and
Like-
went in on there.
It is weird.
And look, and this is just one of the main reasons why I think that and I'm super happy about it. I love the Skywalker family, but I think that the Leia part of it was added later.
And they love each other.
And they clearly love each other. I don't think that anybody was going for a Jaime and Cersei Lannister moment here. I think they didn't know, and they were like, "This is a movie, and we're doing this love triangle." And then later they were like, "Oh, we're gonna do this thing. It's gonna be really cool if Leia's his sister." We'll just ignore that.
Yeah.
I'm of two minds about it because that's how I feel too. But then, character-wise, Luke and Leia don't know their brother and sister, and she is clearly in love with Han and clearly doing this move to make him jealous. It's not that she's actually attracted to Luke.
You know what? And again, this is just probably like the writer preference subjective. I think that the issue with Star Wars is that it's just never addressed. Like when Luke and Leia, and it's not really the right time to do it when he tells her. I mean, when this is jumping ahead of Jedi, but it's like at some point you want somebody in the movie to be like, man, things were weird now that we know about the whole brother-sister thing. It's a little strange. Remember that time on Hoth? And you're like, oh, yeah, let's not talk about it, sis.
Couple of rebel soldiers. Dude, he kissed his sister, dude. I don't know. What's the Force like? This is weird.
Clearly, she kissed him.
Right. Of course. Sure.
And you get the great half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Yep.
Who's scruffy looking?
This is great.
I love all that stuff.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
And this is where these characters are just they're having so much fun. And how much of it is Kasdan and how much of it is them on the set, I don't really know. But you got to love these guys.
Well, Harrison said that, Lucas's dialogue is so wooden and, being able to have a little more freedom in Empire Strikes Back, I'm sure was like so welcome to all of them. So they were able to create the family that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, Lucas didn't even come to the set. He never came to the set, is my understanding.
Well, no, that's my understanding too, is that he never did come to the set. And so then when he finally did check in and said, oh, how's my movie going? And then he saw it and he was like, the hell is this? This is not, what?
It's his dad? What the crap?
He knew that.
Okay.
He did know that.
Do these people know their brother and sister? Do these fucking people know?
They've spotted the droid, so Han and Chewie go out to check it out.
Yeah.
Chewie sticks his head up and yells. This is where I go, so this whole thing is Chewie's fault. Yeah, why does he do that? Han,
that's a good one.
We established on our last podcast that you do great sound effects. That's really good.
Yeah.
That was
very good.
Yeah, it's good. Stop though.
Spend some time on Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk.
So we go back to base, and now we know that the Empire is coming.
Yes. By the way, the guy had great voiceover. That guy who does that. Well, there's only so much we can do. We got to get off the base. Like that guy has a great voiceover. Voice guy. I don't know if he's a voiceover guy, but he had a great voice.
And now we've seen the Imperial destroyers, and now we get to see Vader's ship.
Yeah.
And they really Vader was bad in the first one, and they just doubled down on this one. God. I mean, he is just badass. It's just amazing.
Well, because in the first one, they do this weird thing that he's not in charge. You know,
right?
There's someone else in charge, and he's sort of a kind of a wild card in the first one. In this one, he is in charge.
Yeah.
He has an awesome ship. He has a new piece of music that we hear every time we see him, and it is epic. Yeah, absolutely epic. And he is certain.
That's it. The rebels are there.
My lord, there are so many uncharted settlements. It could be smugglers, it could be...
That is the system. And I'm sure Skywalker is with them. Set your course for the Hoth system. General Veers, prepare your men.
Now, how does he know that? How does Vader? Because he senses him? He senses Skywalker.
I mean, what you really get, I mean, again, it's sort of like it's sort of the other side of the coin of what you were talking about seeing Luke with the lightsaber. Like, the Force is talked about a lot in the first movie, and you see, you know, the choke, you see the choke, and you see the stuff like that, but like, and you see Obi-Wan Kenobi doing some things, but like, this is where A, Luke is using the Force and he gets the lightsaber, but B, all of a sudden, Darth Vader just starts going, that's it. Go here. Yeah. This is it. And you just buy it and accept, like, he's using the Force. He knows what he's doing.
But what we're going to, you know, just like, you know, when Superman premiered, he could jump over a building and a bullet would bounce off of him, and that was it. And over time, his powers got bigger. In Empire, the Force takes a big step up.
Yeah.
Big, huge step up into what it actually means. Luke gets out of medical, and he says goodbye to Chewie. He has a nice moment with Han. The Star Destroyer fleet comes out of hyperspace.
Yep.
Maybe they came out a little too close.
Yeah.
And we prepare for ground assault. This battle is so cool.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it so much as a kid, and watching it a couple days ago, it's still great.
Well, because we didn't have ground assault in the first movie.
Right.
No.
You know, I mean, you had a bunch of stuff on Tatooine. You had some stormtroopers running around, and then you've got all the space stuff, and you've got the Death Star stuff, but you don't have this. And so all of a sudden you got this, and the AT-ATs were just one of the greatest inventions of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And the whole sequence, and like you were saying, like the whole sequence of like the snow speeders kind of like tying him up. It's like, and this is where Star Wars never loses that sense of fun. It's like you've got these huge, you know, things on each side that are shooting lasers and all this stuff, but like the way that they figure out how to do it is something that a 5-year-old would do. Like, I tripped you.
Yeah. And by the way, this is Lucas. I'm confident that the design of the AT-ATs and this whole way of attacking, I think this comes out. This is where he's great.
Yeah.
Leia gives a speech to the troops about the evacuation. I love Carrie Fisher. I think this is her worst moment in all the Star Wars movies.
Wow.
Really?
I just think she's not good in this scene. And she hated it too. She said, I didn't understand what I was saying. I couldn't remember my lines. I was just praying to get through it. She looks so stiff and awkward giving this speech. It's not my favorite moment of hers. Luke gets in a ship with Dak, I think, and goes out to fight against the AT-ATs.
Yep.
And we do this great, like all the blaster fires just bouncing right off him. And how are we going to attack him? It's just as you say. Let's trip him up with our harpoons.
Him and Wedge.
And then meanwhile, you keep cutting back to Chewie not having the Falcon ready.
Yeah.
Like there's just all this stuff going on, and Chewie's like, I think this will plug into here. I don't know. Like,
and Han's like, no, the other one, the other one,
right?
Yeah, we have explosions, and this is one of the things in Empire that's really not true in Star Wars is we're going to have running gags. Like the way humor works in Empire is really different. In Star Wars, there are funny moments, but it's usually a one-liner, which probably was invented by Carrie Fisher or Harrison Ford on the set. You know what I mean? Whereas here we're going to see structural comedy set up over time and relationship comedy set up over time. And this is one of them. The Falcon is not working.
Yeah.
That we're going to get a lot. Dak gets taken out. But you see here that Luke has kind of become a leader. You know, he's taken on a leadership position, and Wedge trips up one guy, and then he gets taken out. And then Luke gets shot, and he crashes with a scary crash. I always thought that shot of him going into and that was done on the that was done for real on the glacier. I mean, he didn't really crash, but it's a full size thing going into the snow on the glacier. And then they had to do the compositing with the AT-ATs. And one thing, by the way, about them, the sound of them, I love some sound design stuff. So the sounds of their footsteps are artillery shells going off in the distance. The sound of a huge mechanical shearer, that would cut through metal, and the sound of a dumpster lid opening and closing. That's the squeak of the footsteps.
Amazing.
And those are the three things that are creating those footsteps. He just manages to get out of the way as a big foot comes down and crushes his ship, and then he shoots up his little suction cup thing, grappling hook goes up, cuts it open with a lightsaber, throws a bomb in. I loved this as a kid.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
Little tiny Luke swinging, little 1 inch tall Luke swinging from the bottom of the stop motion AT-ATs. It's great.
Well, and then also while all this is going on, because again, one of my favorite things about Star Wars when they're done well is C-3PO and R2-D2.
Oh yeah.
And also through this, I forget where they're going, but I think through the entire battle, everyone's doing their thing. Leia refuses to leave. Han's trying to get everything ready so he can leave, yelling at Chewie. Luke's out here being a hero. And C-3PO and R2-D2 are trying to get wherever they're going, and whenever they're almost there, they are redirected by either Leia or they're just like, okay, no, we almost made it. Nope, okay, now you're going back this way. And I just love them through this whole movie.
Just always behind. And Leia, she's going to stay till the last possible second.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's blown up around her. Finally, Han goes, "No, you got to go." And they try to get Leia to her
Funny,
escape
not
ship.
something a scoundrel would do.
I think we're getting the point here.
Try to get Leia to her ship. That's not going to work. So we're going to get out on the Falcon. And who is showing up at the base at this moment? Stormtroopers and Darth Vader.
And Vader comes in. Just so good.
Yeah.
And he comes in right as the Falcon is
Right as it's
taken
flying
off.
away,
Like they just made it out.
Yeah. Well, because that's what we do in adventure movies.
Of course.
You don't make it out with a 5-minute lead. That would be silly. You just make it out. And that's certainly what we do. And then we have this great, with the Millennium Falcon being chased by TIE fighters and the Star Destroyers and trying to escape. And this is where, again, you see, all the special effects have been upped.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is up.
And
2
the
or
great
3
thing about
levels.
Empire is you're right. You can see some of the stop motion stuff. You can see some of the things. But all in all, when you watch Empire today, it still is just damn impressive. It looks so good.
Absolutely.
It looks great. And this is one where they did a lot of color correction on the special edition. And I've looked at some of the before and after. I think they did a great job.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that's fine with me. If you want to do some, improve the color and clean up some grain in an image, it's when you mess with story that really makes me angry.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And there's this great moment where the 2 destroyers almost hit each other as the Falcon dives between them. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And the whole time we were talking about jumping to light speed, and C-3PO keeps trying to talk to Han Solo, but sir, and he keeps telling him to shut up.
Right. Well, and the Han Solo C-3PO relationship, again, another one of the things in this movie that's just amazing because, Han has just got no time for 3PO ever. Turns him off at one. He's just like no, and then you're like, nope, the hyperdrive not working.
Well, and this is I don't want to hit this that hard, but it came up in Star Wars when we talked about Star Wars: New Hope, and I feel I have to bring it on here, which is there is basic racism towards the droids. The way they treat 3PO is so horrible throughout this whole movie.
But they're droids.
But they are clearly sentient creatures with feelings and desires and emotion and a desire for self-preservation. And not only that, but 3PO has the answers multiple times, and later R2 has the answers, and they continually disrespect him.
Well, they don't respect R2.
Nobody
disrespect. No, they don't disrespect R2.
3PO does.
Yeah, but 3PO, that's because they've been in a gay relationship for God knows how long.
In what relationship?
But
don't push your agenda here.
Listen, I'm just saying. Okay, 2 things. One, I don't disagree with you. And when you get into a lot of the other materials, whether it be the books or the comics or anything, this idea of how humans treat droids, given that droids kind of are sentient in this universe, is it's actually weird. Dealt with. It actually has come up in lots of different places. In these movies, the thing is they actually, for the most part, treat C-3PO like a member of the family. He's just a member of the family Han doesn't like. Luke doesn't really disrespect 3PO. Leia, depending on the moment, is we don't have time for you right now. Right. Han just doesn't like him.
Right. That's a fair point. Okay. And of course, what 3PO has been trying to tell them this whole time is that the hyperdrive does not work.
Yeah.
And Han goes down to fix it. I'm assuming, is Leia flying the Falcon when Han and Chewie go down to fix it?
She must be.
I think she must be, although we never see it, which I always thought would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then as they're trying to escape, something hits the ship, and that's not blaster fire. And we come up and we're coming into an asteroid field.
Actually, speaking of John Williams, like I was saying, we all know the Imperial March and the Han and Leia theme. The music during the asteroid chase is actually one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars music in any Star Wars movie.
Good.
It's da 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 da. It's really, really good. Check it out.
I love this sequence. I love the effects. There's so much great movement, and we have to remember that this is all real practical effects. This is them doing all these passes on all these models, moving them all at the same time, using motion controlled cameras so that you can do multiple passes on the same thing. I love the movement of the Falcon. I love one of the things I love is where it turns vertical to fit through a space. The explosion of all the TIE fighters. It's such a great sequence.
Well, and also just from a storytelling standpoint, they do such a great job of the running gag of the Millennium Falcon not working actually also just contributes to they are always just barely ahead. You know what I mean? Like there's no question at any time that at any minute they're going to be destroyed. And they are basically on the run for the entire movie.
Well, and that's one of the interesting things about this movie structurally is that in A New Hope, the structure is very clear. There's a very clear goal. First, the goal is rescue Leia, and then the goal is escape from the Death Star, destroy the Death Star. That's what the movie's about. And in Jedi, it's actually really similar. The goal is rescue Han
because there's another Death Star,
and then destroy the Death Star. And here there is no goal. There is no overarching. They're trying to get away. Luke is in this training world, and there isn't a sense of this is what we're trying to accomplish in the film.
And what it does is it really gets to. It makes you feel the strength of the Empire.
Yeah,
because you get the sense at the beginning of the movie the rebels are doing okay, but they're on this far off ice planet kind of hiding.
Right.
And when the Empire shows up, there's no other rebel base to go to. Like there's nowhere else. We're there's no we're going to try and regroup here. We'll figure this out. But Han and Leia and 3PO and R2 and Chewie never get there. And it also is you get to see the hero that Han is that he's the one that comes up with every good idea to get them out. He's also on the hunk of junk, but he comes up with all the good ideas. So while you deal with the more spiritual aspects of Star Wars on Dagobah, you basically have you can't escape the Empire.
Right. Well, and there's no sense that they're going to fight the Empire.
No.
The Empire is totally overwhelmingly powerful. Yeah. And the other thing that this whole movie is doing is developing characters and relationships and really spending time learning about that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's called The Empire Strikes Back for a reason. They call it The Empire kind of gets there. It's called The Empire Strikes Back. And so it's and that's why. And because obviously you see the budget's larger, so they're able to have more ships. So the power of the Empire is like you were saying, but also we get to see how Han maneuvers the ship. It's fun to see the Millennium Falcon in a fight. We only got snippets of it in A New Hope. So to see an Empire Strikes Back in full on space battles is awesome.
And the shot, when they finally do find their hiding spot, it's like what you were saying, all the shots of seeing the Millennium Falcon going inside. The shot where they sort of do the flip.
Just going to say the same thing.
Into the cave. It's one of the best shots in Star Wars.
It was one of my favorite moments. And his choice, and I love the moment of I'm going to go towards one of the big one. Towards it. And then, of course, they fly into the cave.
Yeah.
It's just a great, beautifully done action sequence. And then we cut to Dagobah.
Yep.
Luke with R2, we hadn't mentioned they got in an X-Wing and they've flown away. And for whatever reason, none of the Empire seems at all interested in him. They're all alone. Fly off to Dagobah. It does not look like a nice planet. Not a place I really want to
And he assures R2 that everything's going to be fine.
It's all going to be fine.
Going to be cool with the droids. And next thing they're in a cloud of insanity as they go down into Dagobah.
Crash into a swamp.
Yeah.
And also, this is where you get that R2 is a sassy bitch.
Yeah, that's true.
R2 is not okay with anything that is happening on Dagobah, and he is very clear. You were talking about sound design and everything else, and I think that the sound design on astromech droids in general in Star Wars at this point, all of them, but R2 specifically. But you think about Chopper on Rebels or stuff, but R2 is one of the greatest because I just feel like I understand him.
You do. You totally do.
And what I understand about Dagobah is he's pissed.
Yeah.
And each one of them has their own personality, right? Because R2 is the way he is, but then you have BB-8's more of a playful, childlike thing, and Chopper's a psychopath.
Chopper is a
sociopath, man. Yeah.
And C-3PO is...
well, he is what he is.
He's what he is.
Not quite a droid. He's his own thing. He's a droid, but
and of course, and to make matters worse, R2 falls into the water.
Gets eaten by a thing.
Shot out. It's not going well for him at all.
But this is where you see some of the Henson influence in these characters. And I I always push back at people who think it's all just one thing, because this is all happening around the Muppets time as well. So this idea that you get these little small characters, then you have them have these funny human-like moments, that's all there with what Henson was doing with the Muppets. So when R2 gets when R2 gets shot out and you hear that that scream, that's a Muppet thing. That's a Muppet thing. And so to me, that there's a lot that, and plus Frank Oz is part of the voices in this. So as we're about to find out, so to me, there's all kinds of influence to this with what Henson was doing at the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you really just can't, the sound design does play a big part of it, but just the little movements of R2, like the rolling back and forth, like everything about him, like he's a character.
Yeah, such personality. Absolutely.
We go back to Darth Vader, and there is a very important moment. You see the back of his head.
Yep.
I remember seeing it as a kid and going, whoa.
Yeah.
And the thing that I didn't think about, but what George Lucas said, was up to this point, nobody knew what Darth Vader was. Is he a robot? Is he a machine? What is he? And now you get this glimpse of this scarred up head.
Yeah.
Super cool that you see the back of Darth Vader's head, but also really important because, to your point, nobody in the first movie knows what Darth Vader is, and because of what we're going to find out, you need that moment where you're like, oh, you are human under there.
Yeah.
You are somebody.
Yeah. You are burnt to a crisp because you were supposed to be the chosen one.
Yeah, well, a whole bunch of stuff there.
High ground.
High ground.
All
right, anyway, sorry.
So we're in this cave. Things are kind of calm. We need C-3PO to now talk to the Falcon, normally an R2-D2 job, to find out what's wrong with the hyperdrive. And
this hyperdrive is like
it's a real problem.
Everything. Isn't like it's the fulcrum of the entire...
Listen, hyperdrive is a very complex thing.
I mean, clearly. It's like warp drive in Star Trek.
Well, it is.
Same
It
concept.
is literally the same thing.
But they make it the same. But what I mean is that they make it the problem all the time in Star Trek and in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Got to get that warp drive. Shit, why isn't it working? Got to get that,
maybe they need dilithium crystals.
Hello.
And there's a weird thing where the cave kind of moves. Everything kind of shakes.
Yeah.
Can't imagine what would be going on to there.
And then you get those freaky ass Minox.
Those bats.
Well, and what happens the first time it shakes is that Leia falls into Han's arms. And he spends a long time before he lets go of her. And finally, she forces him to let go.
It's weird to watch the movie in 2017 with all the stuff that's coming out. Like, it used to be innocent, those kinds of things where the guy would be a little overly aggressive physically, like for lack of a better term. He's flirting with her, and she says, "Let me go." And he does not. And she says, "Please." So, like, he holds her longer than he should for 2017. But back then, and even watching, you understand their relationship is this way because it's going to end up being together. But this is something we covered in Blade Runner, how when Harrison pushes Rachel in that moment, and I'm not saying anything negative about Harrison Ford or anything about Han Solo. I'm saying it's just an interesting moment to watch now in 2017.
But I will say, well, I will say that when I watch Blade Runner, I get very uncomfortable by the way Harrison Ford treats Rachel. Like, I think that's highly uncomfortable today. Like, watching it now, you're like, that's
interesting.
That is definitely assault.
It's funny I don't because it's a noir thing, but I get it why people do.
Yeah, no, watching Blade Runner now, that is assault.
Okay.
What this is two people who are clearly very close to each other. Like, I still don't find anything super inappropriate about this moment. Like, I don't watch this moment and go, Han has overstepped his bounds and is now assaulting Leia.
Well, yeah. I mean, assault is, to me, I assault, the word is like attack. But he is holding her physically. And she says let go, and he doesn't.
You're right.
And then when he finally does, after pleading a second or third time, I think he made some kind of comment, he makes some kind of comment that isn't necessarily a positive comment.
No, I mean, but look, I think everything between them is this very combative, flirtatious. They definitely have that sort of classic Hollywood kind of banter between them. Like it's like we're fighting and we're arguing.
But romantic comedy. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it ever quite gets for me. And I am a dude. So
no, but I think it doesn't get that way because we have established that Leia is a forceful personality. She's not someone to be taken advantage of. So that's why it still works. But I just felt like watching it this time, it was a little bit like,
I don't think it's like the Blade Runner. Because the Blade Runner one, the relationship between him, Deckard, and Rachel is, in the first scene, he refers to her as an it.
Right.
In the second scene, he doesn't respect her feelings at all. Mm-hmm. He doesn't see her as human. And his main job, he's like a slave catcher. You know, and if this was the 1840s, his main job is to hunt down her kind and kill her. And in that scene, he pushes her up against the wall. That's why that one seems so like fraught.
He's trying to break through her defenses, but I agree with you. Looking through it, it's not.
I think what you getting through her defenses, that is exactly what the scene is meant to be.
Meant to be, yes.
But watching it, I go, and
I
respect
respect
weird.
that.
Yeah.
Whereas this scene is just what's weird about it is Leia in 2 movies has shown no sign whatsoever of being attracted to this guy. But the conceit of the movie is that she totally is.
I would argue the first scene that we were talking about where you see Leia in this movie where Han is talking about leaving and she's looking at him.
Absolutely.
I think, and go Carrie Fisher, awesome acting. Like, I think you watching it, you go, oh no, she likes Han.
Oh yeah, totally.
She likes him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But nothing overt, I should say.
Nothing overt.
No, certainly not. And nor should she be. She's a princess. He's a scoundrel. He's a thief in the universe. She comes from Alderaan, all that kind of stuff is a different approach. I guess you're retconning it in a way because of all the media that's come out afterwards. But at that time, you couldn't really invest all that knowledge into it. But still, her personality, her approach to it is from a different place.
Well, I mean, I don't know that it's retconning so much as clearly when they made the movie, they made the choice. These two are in love with each other.
Yeah, true.
So the moment that she looks at him, that's not like us retconning and saying, well, now that we know how it ends up, I think she was. Like, that is very intentionally, she's in love with him.
Oh, no. I mean that her position as a princess, what she endured with the death of all the people that died at Alderaan, all these, like, her weight, she has more emotional weight in the situation than Han does. So that's what I mean is that.
Sure.
Her approach to the whole thing. So that's why Han has to kind of play this way, the way he plays it. Because
although another thing that I love, just kind of bringing that up before we jump back into the movie where we're at, is one of the great things about Princess Leia as a character is she consistently defies exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
In the first movie, she is set up, she's called a princess. Mm-hmm. She is the damsel in distress trapped in the tower. And the second that she is rescued, she grabs a gun and takes control of the situation.
Absolutely.
Then when we get to this movie, the last time we saw her, she was still sort of this regal character. Even when they got to the rebel base, she wasn't in the fight. She was there in the control room observing, hoping that everybody turned out okay. We get to the beginning of this movie, the way that her hair is, the way she is dressed, like she's in it with the grunts. Like she's in it with the soldiers. She's not some regal princess watching down on everybody going, I hope you all do a good job. Like, as we were saying, she won't leave.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, you've got to go. And she's like, I'm staying here to get everybody out. So I think what's great about her as a character is she is a princess. Yeah. She did deal with this. She is from Alderaan. But everything about her character is that she is a down and dirty soldier who's going to do what she needs to do to save the day and would sacrifice herself for anybody else.
Well, and this is why I push back sometimes when people say, oh, well, shouldn't she be a Force user? Shouldn't she? Why wasn't she a Jedi? And I'm like, her role in this is way more important than the Jedi. What she has to do to lead this rebellion, she's a powerful leader, she's a military leader, tactician, all these kinds of things, she's powerful in her own ways that, to me, it's irrelevant whether she can use the Force or not, because she's already a powerful person. She does not need to use the Force to be a powerful person, unlike Luke. Luke needs the Force. Without the Force, Luke is just a fucking moisture farmer in Tatooine. Like, there's nothing there. But like Leia, she's already incredibly powerful.
Well, and in the way that she's treated at the base, she's in charge.
Yeah.
And she's in charge in a way without having to necessarily be... Like, there are people working under her.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, too, is I think the Han-Leia relationship is like classic romantic comedy.
Oh, totally.
Which is there's these two people that are going to fight the whole time. Han Solo is nothing like if Leia were to picture a man in her life. Mm-hmm. It certainly wouldn't be Han Solo. And she wants Han Solo to be things that he's not. Mm-hmm. And Han Solo can't understand Leia's responsibilities and positions and why she's not just showing her love for him, which he knows. Mm-hmm. He's going to say, I know later. He knows that she has, and so we have this, we're going to fight and fight and fight until we finally get together relationship.
Well, Michael mentioned stories about John Roca. When we lived together in London, we lived with a girl named Sally, and we fought the whole time we all lived together. There was like 5 of us and lived together, 3 girls, 2 boys. We fought the whole time. By the end of it, it was realized that the reason we were fighting so much is because we had an attraction for each other.
Sure.
By the end of it, for them. Not the other people living in the flat.
Listen,
Sally-
it's not. I'm sure C-3PO and Chewie would have said the same thing.
Yeah, Roku would be like, Roko's like, can you believe what Sally said? And I'd be like,
my man's not lying. My man's not lying. It's true. And Sally and I are great friends now. I think she's engaged to be married. Like we almost pursued the relationship a couple of years ago, and it never really came to fruition. But like, it was so funny. That was my first experience with something like that. So watching it in the film, it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense.
And I do think for a lot of people growing up, watching that Han and Leia relationship is sort of the template for these people don't feel like they should be together, but they clearly are in love with each other.
Yeah.
That's what I want to find.
That's right.
And that is Ron and Hermione, and it is.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It is a relationship structure that has worked ever since.
Yeah.
We're back to Dagobah. Luke set up a little camp. He's feeling kind of like something might be watching them. And who do we meet? Yoda. But one of the great Star Wars characters. One of the great characters of all time.
Yeah.
Yoda.
Yeah. You could argue the greatest. You could argue, but
The greatest Star Wars character?
And sometimes there are days I feel that way.
Oh, wait, put your weapon. I mean you no harm. I am wondering, why are you here?
I'm looking for someone.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
It is so amazing to me that they did this the way that they did it, because it really doesn't sound like it should work.
Yeah.
And it does. Like, in the first, it started with, in early drafts of A New Hope, Ben was not supposed to die. And so he was going to go on and be training Luke for the second movie. But because they decided to kill Obi-Wan, now it's like we need somebody else. And the first thing that George said is that I want the most powerful guy in the Force to be small. That was the first choice.
Totally makes sense.
And then the second choice was, I don't really want a guy in a suit. And you brought it up, is that the Muppet Show is going on right when this is happening. And where do they shoot the Muppet Show? In London.
Right.
Where they're shooting Star Wars. So that's so he calls up Jim Henson and says, hey, do you think you could do this? And Jim says, yeah, this would be great. And Jim Henson says, you have to have Frank do it because Frank Oz is the best puppeteer we have.
And,
Yeah.
And it really is. I mean, I don't know that without, to your point, without the magic of Jim Henson and what he was able to do with puppetry, I don't think you get Yoda.
No.
And Yoda works because Frank Oz, who is Fozzie and Miss Piggy and Bert, and all these other amazing characters, he knew what the fuck he was doing.
Yeah.
So you've got this puppet on this set, and there was one time working for Hasbro when we did a Sesame Street event, and I got to meet the guy doing Cookie Monster. And you don't look. I'm literally standing there. There is a man on his knees, and he's got the Cookie Monster thing, and I just stare at Cookie Monster.
And you talk to Cookie Monster.
And you talk to Cookie Monster, and you believe it. Like, you are 100%. If you meet a Muppet in real life, if you're ever lucky enough to be in one of those situations, it makes you giddy. You feel like you're 5 years old, and you believe it. So just like this, you're watching this movie, and Luke is sitting there, and R2 is being sassy, as he is wont to do. Sure. And then this weird puppet shows up, and without even a split second of what's going on, you instantly buy that this thing is a character and you believe it.
Yeah, and it's distinct, right? Because the speech pattern is distinct. Right, but also rearranging the words in not a, that's very good, rearranging the words not in a normal way in speaking the sentences, right? It's almost Shakespearean in the way that it's moving intention around within the words. And I always love that about Yoda.
And then this gets back to that classic, it's done in lots of, lots of films about, great ninja masters or whoever. It's like the person who looks the least likely to be a ninja master is the ninja master, and it's like
right. And Frank Oz's performance, and what we should say is it's actually four guys' performance to do Yoda, because there's Frank, who's got his hand up there and is doing the voice, and then there's another guy doing one arm, another person doing the eyes, and another person doing the ears, and they all have to coordinate it, and they built the set 5 feet off the ground because you have to have all these puppeteers walking around, and they can't really hear very well what's going on above them, and Mark Hamill can't hear what Frank Oz is saying, so he has a little earpiece on. Like, this is and there's lots of fog, and there's animals, and I mean, this is technically really, really hard stuff, and they're doing it for months, and yet the performance from Frank Oz is nuanced and complicated and serious and funny and 100% real. So 3PO has figured out that it's something to do with the polarized power coupling or other. He tells Han immediately kind of yells at him and then takes the idea like it's his own.
Yeah.
And then we get this scene with Han and Leia, and they're sort of in the hallway, and he's calling her your worship or something like that. She goes, "Stop calling me that." And he says, "Okay, Leia." And she says, "You make it so difficult." What does she mean by that? What is he making so difficult?
I mean, I believe what she's saying in that moment is like, I want to like you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I want you to be my guy.
Yeah.
And I think this is what Han, because Han, earlier on when they're on the base on Hoth, like, he keeps saying, he's like, yeah, you he's basically like, you like me. And she refuses to say it because he consistently does things that let her down. In little ways, it's like she's the one who's like, I think you're hero material. I think you're a guy that I want to be with. But then you cop attitude about me being a princess. You say you're going to dip off and go pay this gangster. You say you're going to do this, and you consistently make it difficult for you to be my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And because this could go easier, but you're being such a passive aggressive baby about everything.
Yeah.
That you're making this so much more difficult. But I also think, in a way, he is hitting all the right buttons.
Well, in this scene, because there's this moment, she says, "My hands are dirty."
Yeah.
He says, "My hands are dirty too." This is where we hear this. We've talked about this word a lot,
right.
But this is the first time we hear her call him a scoundrel.
Yeah.
And he says,
Scoundrel. Scoundrel. I like the sound of that.
and then there's this moment of, you need scoundrels in your life.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
He knows. But in his mind, he thinks she's a princess who's been pampered, who's been spoiled. So his approach to her is to not do what everyone else has done, is kiss her butt and worship her and do whatever.
You are so funny. I'm
telling you what he's doing.
You think that he has
I'm
got
talking about
this
heterosexual
all,
relationships, Michael.
You think? Listen, I have dealt with your heterosexual relationships for 20 years.
Let's call Sally and see
20
what
plus.
she thinks.
20 plus. Yeah.
I just think it's funny that you believe that everything that Han does, he's doing because he's figured this out and he's playing some kind of game.
Oh no, I think it's instinctual. I don't think it's on purpose.
I don't think it's here's the real thing.
I think he's insecure.
Han is so insecure. He
does
does
you
not
think
know.
he's insecure.
Han thinks the reason he calls her worshipfulness, highness, all the time is, in his mind, there's no way she would ever be with him. So he's going to recklessly throw shit against the wall and be the little kid who pokes you on the playground because he thinks that she's a princess and she's never going to want him. He knows she kind of likes him and he doesn't know what to do about it, and he wants her to say something and she won't. And the second that she says, "You make it so difficult," he finally takes this opening, like they actually almost get to the moment where, oh, they finally have gotten past their shit and they're going to have a thing, and then the Minoc freaks them the fuck out.
But it isn't like she's incredibly nice to him all the fucking time either. Don't make it seem like she's the one being like, "Han, if you would just talk to me." She's just as difficult to get to know as anybody. She has armor up herself.
Oh, of course
Agreed.
she does.
So your assessment is no more valid than mine.
No.
It's just your interpretation of what you think
My
he's doing.
assessment is
'Cause
correct.
I don't think he's insecure.
Han Solo is
Totally
super
insecure.
insecure.
You're both crazy. He's not.
Why does, when 3PO says it's the power coupling, does he kind of dismiss 3PO
Because
and then say, "Oh, it's the power coupling"?
Well, because he doesn't like to be questioned. It's his ship. There's nothing wrong with that.
Listen, I know that you have a personal thing about Han and you feel like I'm attacking you right now, but I'm just letting you know.
I wonder why I would feel attacked. I love how I wonder how I would feel attacked by that intro to that. But you're right. I'm sure you both are right. Yeah, I don't. It's not that I don't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. He is insecure in a certain way. But I also think he's a guy who has. And we know this. He seems to be a guy who knows his way around women and knows instinctually how to flirt with women in a certain way. This is what I'm saying. Whether it comes from insecurity or whatever, I think both things are true. I think he's insecure, but I also think he's playing it a certain way.
I think both of these people are used to people treating them differently. I think Leia is used to people accepting what she says and her orders.
Good point.
And he is used to being the scoundrel that women love.
Right.
So both of them...
Seducing women quickly, right.
Both of them are out at sea without a paddle here. They don't know what's going on. Leia has feelings for this guy who is the one guy who never listens to her. Mm-hmm. And Han is like, I'm good with the ladies, and this girl won't give me the time of day. Neither of them knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's why Han's going like,
I'm glad we can find a compromise.
So I'm leaving, because Han's kind of going, I'm leaving, and she goes, well, we're going to miss you as a soldier,
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I know. Why aren't you expressing feelings towards me? And that makes him crazy, and that makes him.
Why isn't she Why are we asking the questions? Why isn't she expressing her feelings?
Well, we're not avoiding it.
I think you're right.
You're right. She doesn't know how to deal with those feelings.
No, I think you're right about that. Like, I'm agreeing with you. Like,
yeah.
So maybe that influences further actions later on in the movie because she won't come forward and tell him how she really feels.
No, they're both people that cannot deal with their feelings for each other.
Do you need to call somebody?
No, I'm telling you what's happening.
Well,
it's not all Han's fault.
But fellas, guess what? In this moment, they are going to have a moment of connection.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Stop what?
Stop that. My hands are dirty.
My hands are dirty, too. What are you afraid of?
Afraid?
You're trembling.
I'm not trembling.
You like me because I'm a scoundrel. There aren't enough scoundrels in your life.
I happen to like nice men.
Nice man.
Very nice.
And then what happens next?
The kiss, man.
The kiss, and it's very clear.
Oh, it's powerful.
That it is. They both want it. That this is what that it is. The feelings they have for each other are real and true. And then what happens?
Sir, I've isolated the reverse power flux coupling.
And I love Harrison Ford's.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh,
exactly.
It's so great.
Yeah. And she takes a moment to run off.
And
she
she's
doesn't
gone.
stay.
Then she's gone.
And poor C-3PO just doesn't really know what he did wrong. Just trying to get by.
And the fleet is getting beat up by the asteroids, and Darth Vader's just like, let's keep going. Oh no, wait, there's a call from the Emperor, and immediately he's like, let's get out of this asteroid belt.
Yeah.
I got to take a phone call.
You don't play.
And then we get to see the Emperor.
And then we get to this scene that is a hotly debated scene.
Ooh.
With the Emperor, because there is a big question about this, where I believe, according to George Lucas, he believes that when the Emperor says something about the son of Skywalker, George Lucas believes this is when Darth Vader finds out
that his son is alive.
That Skywalker is his son.
Right.
That the Emperor lied to him all the time or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, he's clearly known this the entire movie. Like, he didn't know in the first movie that his son was the guy flying the X-Wing, but as soon as he finds out about Skywalker, like, he knows. Like, this is a big moment in, like, a geek discussions about, like, is this when Darth Vader finds out, or did he already know this going in?
Because he says that's impossible. Vader says that. So does he know?
But there's no reaction like, holy shit, I have a son. There's nothing. There's no reaction like that.
He just goes, that's impossible.
I didn't know this. I had not heard this before. But there's nothing in that scene that feels like that. If you were going to do a scene where Darth Vader discovers that he has a son, you would do that scene.
Or you'd have a close-up where after the conversation's over, where he sits in close-up and is like, does something with his helmet that makes you think he's pondering what the news he's got.
But it begs the question, and actually, if you happen to be someone who's read the latest Marvel comics, all the comics that have come out recently with Star Wars, the Darth Vader comic book series actually does address this and does do the moment in the most awesome way of when Darth Vader actually finds out, and it is everything you ever wanted it to be. But yeah, because there is this in New Hope, Darth Vader does not know that this dude is his son.
Right.
And I think my understanding of it always was whatever happened between those two movies, in Empire Strikes Back, he knows Luke's, like when it says in that beginning crawl, he's obsessed with finding Skywalker. You're like, yeah, because you knew.
Yeah.
So why does he tell the Emperor that's impossible?
That is the hotly debated topic. That is and I think it is because the intention may have been one thing in that scene, but the history and the epicness of Star Wars in this moment have made everybody sort of go, that, I don't buy that.
Well, this is the dirty little secret about Star Wars. It's not as continuity. The continuity is not as untouchable as people want to believe it is. They switch stuff around all the time to not make it work. And so
I mean that's just the nature of art, and I'm always bothered.
True.
People who are like, well, Spider-Man in issue 20, blah blah blah. It's like, look, these things evolve over time, and it's nothing is ever going to match up perfectly.
Right.
You know, it's just not. It's not all going to work because there's a creative process, and you figure stuff out as you go along. But one thing that does happen in this scene is the discussion of what are we going to do with Skywalker, and Darth Vader says,
if he could be turned, he would become a powerful ally.
Try to turn Luke to the dark side. And I think we end with, he will join us or die.
Mm-hmm. Now is this Ian McDiarmid in the makeup?
Yes, the new Emperor.
Yeah.
Not my Emperor. So, yeah.
I'm confused.
That is one of the few
That's not Palpatine? That's Palpatine, right?
Right, but that's not the Emperor in the original release. They replaced him in the special edition.
Right.
That is one of the few
Just
changes.
Like they replaced Boba Fett's dialogue, the person the voiceover of Boba Fett.
Yeah, and that's one where it's like, I liked the Emperor, the original Emperor is much creepier looking.
Yes.
And weirder than this one is.
God damn it. I'm so used to watching the old version, man, because I grew up with that. All right, sorry.
And then we leave at this moment where we hear that Darth Vader say that Luke is going to join us or die. We go to Yoda's hut, tiny little small place where Luke barely fits. And I just imagine shooting like a week in there. It just must have been torture for Mark Hamill. And by the way, Mark Hamill, he is like the only actor called to the set for like 2 months.
Wow.
Because it's just him and a puppet.
Wow.
And that's just really, really weird. But this scene is great. Because at first, Mark Hamill's perception is that this is some weird little creature. And then there's this moment where it turns.
Yeah, and the best part about it is when he starts out, he's almost like a child. Because he's like discovering all this stuff, going through things and fighting the flashlight. He's almost like a child of wonder. You know, these things he's discovering.
Totally.
And then the switch happens. And damn it, even watching it again now, when the switch happens,
when he's just like, I'm done with. Well, because
it is fantastic.
What he's really doing is he's testing Luke.
Okay.
I mean, I think look, again, like not retconning everything I know about Yoda living on Coruscant and knowing what a droid is, but like even when this movie was made, like he's seeing what kind of guy Luke is.
Yeah, that's
I
a good
totally
point.
agree.
That's a great point.
When I show up and I'm going to annoy you and I'm going to act like a dumb little old man and I'm going to get excited and I'm going to eat your food and I'm going to watch how you react.
That's a good point.
And I'm going to tell you I know where Yoda is, but I'm going to see how patient you are. I'm going to see how kind you are to a little old man. And then he just reaches his limit and the switch happens and he's like full on like, I'm not doing it. I'm out. Not training this dude.
It's the exit. Oh, man. Such a great switch.
Too old. Too old. Yeah.
And he comes up with all too old, too reckless, like all the reasons he can't do it.
And who is he talking to when this is going on?
Ben.
Yeah.
This moment, by the way, where Ben's voice starts and Luke sort of looks around, is so right on the end of comedy and being ridiculous, like so something you would make fun of, but it totally works within the scene. And you see, I mean, how Frank Oz creates a physical change within the character at this moment as you see his Yoda-ness happen. It's just amazing.
And it's what they call in acting a dominant submissive situation, right? It is dominant submissive or playing status, right? When they're starting out in this relationship, Luke is the higher
Luke thinks
status.
he has a status because you're just this crazy old man.
Yeah, right. And then when the switch happens, all of a sudden Luke is like the student immediately.
Yeah. Right. And he's like begging to please take me on.
Yeah.
And ends with him saying,
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
It's the creepiest thing of all time.
It's so great. That is such a great, great moment.
And it has weight to it because he says, I'm not afraid. You will. Because that's 800 years of all this in that line. You will be. I know better than you. You will be. Yeah, that's great.
That's just what. And it's funny, you know, having watched tons and tons of martial arts things with senseis. Like, this is it. This is, we've met the great. You know, this is Mr. Miyagi. This is, you know, it's like the sensei who's going to take you on the journey to go become who you have to become.
Yeah.
Here's a question I have too, and I can't remember for me, but do you think that you knew that was Yoda when you first met him out at Luke's little campsite from the beginning, or do you think you were surprised in the moment that we discover it?
I don't even know anymore. For me, the watching of that movie is so like entrenched in. I don't remember. I was 3 the first time I saw it, so I don't think I had an opinion on Yoda. But like now, it's like everybody knows that's Yoda. Like, you know, you don't watch that movie and not know who Yoda is, so you know.
Yeah. I remember being surprised when the moment happened.
Now the destroyers are bombing the asteroid. And we're still down underneath, and Leia's kind of all alone, and she looks up, and something goes by, and then, bam, something appears. Dude, you're so good at this.
Yeah.
So we decide to go outside. It's one of the very few times we have like the sci-fi thing of them having like a breathing apparatus.
Yep.
Which, because most of Star Wars, we don't care about things like that. And the ground seems a little squishy, and these Minocs are flying around, and then Chewie fires at one of them, and we get a big earthquake.
Yep.
And then Han starts to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And he fires down at the ground, and the whole world starts shaking.
Yep.
This is great adventure stuff.
Yeah.
We run inside. Leia doesn't know what's going on. He's like, we're getting out of here. She's like, no, it's a bad idea. And he goes, I don't have time to put this in front of the committee. I'm not the committee.
Her running after him. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm not the committee.
Yeah. And they go towards the mouth of the cave, and now we see the teeth closing, and she goes, and it's like, that's not a cave.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the great shot of them flying out, and the huge
worm
thing coming out, which is, by the way, that's like a sock puppet.
Oh,
it's just totally a hand puppet.
You could just be like, rah, rah.
Yeah, and they just, of course, make it out. And now we're doing some training. Now we're doing some training with
full-on Rocky shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a Yoda on your back.
Yeah.
Which is great when it's just a backpack with Yoda's head that you're climbing around, doing flips.
Climbing vines, the whole nine, yeah.
And then there's this conversation where we get into this. This is where we get into some real Force stuff.
Yes, Jedi strength flows from the Force. But beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force are they. Easily they flow, quick to join you in a fight. If once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will, as it did Obi-Wan's apprentice.
Vader.
Yoda's not telling Luke either.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So George Lucas and Irvin Kershner and all of them were really worried that this whole sequence of all this talk is going to drag the movie down and everyone's going to be bored. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love it because this is like just the thing that I love about really good sci-fi or fantasy. It's like, as adults, we all look at this. Oh yeah, that's cute. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
But when you look at the world we live in today, and you look at the things people deal with, you're like, oh yeah, holding on to your anger leads to hate and suffering and fear, and it's darkness, and you never get out of it. And you're like, yeah, that shit's true.
Yeah.
And it sounds cheesy, and we've seen it on so many posters and stuff that you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get the dark side. But you're like, that's real. Like when you do hold on to anger, when you don't let shit go, when you want to see people suffer and hurt because they hurt you, I mean, that you go down a bad road. So like I think the reason that Star Wars is so just entrenched in all of our psyches is because all the stuff that they hit on this is some deep true shit.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like violence devoid of philosophy is pornographic. If we're just teaching you how to fight, then we're just getting turned on by watching violence. But if it's really funny. When I was doing martial arts, I had an epiphany. I'd done it for a few years, and I was hanging out with some people at a bunch of people I was training with, and we're having like dinner, and then some weird racism came out at the table and some like weird stuff. And it really freaked me out because I was sort of, in my mind, doing martial arts was like a journey to wisdom. I mean, you're training to do this stuff, but and what I realized was like, oh, you only get that if that's what you're going into it for.
Right.
It's there, but if you don't care about that, if you're not thinking those things, then you're just learning how to hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most organizations that meet heads who fight will have a lot of racism come up in conversations. MMA, boxing, what have you, football, any sport. That was a big thing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And 90s, the homophobic locker rooms, so
Sure.
It's not a surprise.
And what Yoda's doing here is going, no, there's a truth here.
Right.
Like you cannot learn the ways of the Force without understanding these fundamental truths. And I think they're real. I think they're things that they're lessons to be learned here.
I love what he says and it's James Cameron kind of stole this with Avatar, but he said like Yoda says in that moment, like, the Force flows through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the old philosophy that everything is connected, that everything is on the same wavelength. It's no different than when in the Na'vi in Avatar when they connect their hair into the tree and everything like that, or whatever it is that they connect to the tree. It's all of that. It's that when you look at the Native American approach to it, it is that everything flows through Mother Nature. The Force is essentially Mother Nature, and that's what Yoda's kind of saying.
Well, and there's connections with Zen Buddhism, and there's connections with all sorts of different religions and spiritual practices that relate to this connectedness of things. And the thing that Yoda is clearly warning Luke about is the darkness within himself, and that's something we're going to deal with. And Luke wondering, how am I going to know which way is the dark way and which way is the light. The one other thing to always think about is that in these really great conversations where Luke is having with Yoda, who's like on his back, is Luke talking to a puppet, and standing behind him are 4 dudes, working all those little parts to make this very intimate conversation work.
Yeah.
And then Luke starts to feel cold.
Yeah.
And he feels like something's happening. And Yoda kind of nods and goes, yeah, you're going to have to go there. And
I feel like this is what happens at Burning Man when like you're with your like old burner friend. All of a sudden you start feeling weird and you're like, dude, the mushrooms are hitting. Just go do your thing.
So I have a couple of questions about this. The first thing is Yoda making this happen?
No. I don't think so.
So what is happening?
Did you want to say?
I have something, but please go ahead.
Look, and this is sort of that retrofitted, like having watched all the Star Wars things and everything else. Like Dagobah is a place that is very strong in the Force, and anywhere that is really strong in the Force. And if you're really get geeky about it, like the Jedi's built a bunch of temples around places that were strong in the Force. But when you're anywhere that's strong in the Force itself will sort of reach out and test you or do things for you. So I don't think that Yoda's making this happen. I think Yoda knows, as much as he's running Luke around and making him lift things and flip, like this is a part of training also. And as they were having this conversation and Luke started to question things, that part of himself started to come out. And so when he says he's cold, Yoda's like, yep, all right, it's time for that shit. You got to go deal with it, dude.
Yeah, that's great. I had not thought. That's really good. And of course, what does Luke do? He grabs his weapons.
Yep.
Of course. And Yoda says, you're not going to need those. So Luke puts down his weapons and doesn't bring them?
No, he brings them.
No, he still brings his weapons.
Right, because he's still young.
And that is a clear sign that he's not ready.
Yes.
Yeah. And he climbs down into this cave. Even R2 is scared, which I always wonder, how's R2 vibing on what's going on with the Force?
Yeah. R2 knows a lot lot of things, man.
Yeah, he clearly does.
He's an old droid.
He goes down into this cave, and it is genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
It is a creepy cave with snakes and all sorts of weird animals.
And also then, like, what happens, I mean, Darth Vader steps out of the shadows, Luke, it's this big villain, and, like, as a kid, this really confused me.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I was like, what? I don't understand what's happening.
Did Vader find him?
Wasn't he on the ship with the... Yeah. They're looking... No, it's very strange.
Did he just kill Vader? Like, there's all of
Well, yeah, and he cuts his head off.
Right.
And then there's this moment where there's, like, an explosion, the faceplate goes out, and there's Luke's face.
And that's, like...
Which, by the way,
freaky.
As a kid, I didn't recognize that was Luke. I didn't understand. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously now older, it's foreshadowing of what you're going to find out later is that Vader is his father, because that's his blood inside the suit. But also it's confronting the darkness of you. You could go either way. That's always been the thing about the Force. You can go either way, light or dark.
And also saying that by doing the thing that you did, by defeating your enemy, you sort of became your enemy.
Yes, which is what will come out in Jedi. Yes.
Well, and this is, in any
that's a great point,
dream or spirit journey or drug-filled spirit journey, interpreting what it means is complicated.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of interpretations here. I have a question.
No. Yes.
We've been talking about, it's been brought up many, many times, this idea of Luke and the dark side, his struggle with the dark side, and his anger and his fear, and also his lack of patience. Have we seen Luke struggle with the dark side? Is there any part of his personality that seems dark? Does he seem like an angry person? We've been told that these are struggles.
Right. He's an impulsive person.
Impulsive sometimes.
But Yoda says to him, right, you're always looking. You're never here.
No, concentrating on what you are doing.
Concentrate on what you are doing.
That seems to be somewhat accurate.
And I think that's because he's always not happy with where he's at. He thinks in his mind that he has to get to this place in his mind. But the thing they always tell you is that where you're going to is not as important as the journey. And so
I totly agree with all that.
Right. And I think
does he seem angry?
No, I don't think Luke seems angry. I think Luke is frustrated. And even when Owen and Aunt Beru are killed, he's not overly emotional about it. And that tells you because he was it's almost like Amadeus. Salier is happy when his father dies. He has this thing of, okay, that gets them out of the way, now I can go get what I want. But Luke has always been a flawed fucking person to consider as the one. It's always been Leia to me that was really the best. Luke was always flawed. He's a man of impulse.
This is the way I'll give you my interpretation of it, because no, I don't think that we ever see Luke as a dark person at all. Like, he's the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed hero of New Hope, and even everything at the leading up to this point in Empire, we haven't seen it. I think he is impetuous, and I think that Luke has an idea of what he thinks being the hero means.
Yeah,
and I think this is where Yoda's like, what you think being a hero means is not what being a hero means, and Luke doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
I also think that Yoda and Obi-Wan are putting a lot of their own concerns on Luke about what they went through with Anakin. If you really want to get into the big history of everything, I don't think it's one of those weird things when you talk about Empire as a movie and you try and put yourself in the seat of like, well, when they were making this movie, this is what they were thinking, right. And now all these years later, having watched prequels and Clone Wars and everything else, I have another opinion of it. But I think that they're both looking at Luke and going, yeah, you're great, and you're impetuous, and I do know, since I know a lot of the guys who worked on Clone Wars, the animated series, this is what they put into Anakin, the character in Clone Wars, is they made a character who was impetuous, didn't listen to anybody, did what he wanted to do, was really strong with the Force, and was a hero, and did great. And so I think when I watch this, I just see an old dude that was like, oh yeah, okay, you're impetuous, you're going to take your weapon and you're not going to listen to me. Who was that like? That didn't turn out so well. But I think in terms of just when this movie was made, I also think that. I think what they're getting at is being a hero is not what you think it means.
Well, to me, and it's funny because I was thinking about it quite a bit, I think the movie is telling us that Luke is struggling between the dark and the light, but they're not showing us that, and that's not really part of his character.
But I disagree, because when you take Luke's entire arc, even leading into Jedi, there's only one point in the entire movie near the end of Jedi where he even comes close to the dark side.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that, again, I don't think Luke's arc is them saying, I think Yoda's saying, like, look, all of us have the capability. We all have these fears and insecurities in us.
And this is the thing. So I love Empire, but I think this element is a thing that is part of what makes Jedi flawed, and it's
how dare you, sir?
and it's definitely what makes George Lucas incapable of writing Anakin properly in the prequels, is that we're saying all the time there's this struggle between dark and light, but it's not really built into this character. And so now I adore Empire. And I think it's a great movie, but I think we never saw him struggle with darkness ever.
No,
it just really doesn't happen.
But again,
until that one moment in Jedi.
But again, At what point in the movies, I think you're putting a lot on Yoda telling him about the dark side, and then this moment happens where Luke faces a dark aspect of himself. But again, the arc of Luke Skywalker, even in this movie, it's his thing at the end of the movie is not, you gave into darkness. His thing at the end of the movie is you gave into your impetuous nature. You couldn't wait.
Right. Agreed.
So I think that all of that, and then when we see, we'll do Jedi another day and we'll talk about it. But I think that I think that Anakin's arc in the prequels is very flawed, because there's a lot of show don't tell. I mean, there's a lot of tell don't show.
Tell don't show.
But with Luke, I don't think him having a struggle with the dark side is actually an issue.
I've never had an issue with it because I think we all struggle with that. I think we all have moments where we want to be good to people, and when we make mistakes like turning our backs on our friends and things like that, and in certain moments that we for self-preservation, things of that nature. I think we have them as we get older and we discover them. And he's still young, so he can go either way. So, but I think what you say is right. They're putting a lot of pressure on him from their own experience with Anakin.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I think
We're going to meet some bounty hunters.
So this is important. I mean, this is great because this is one of those things that has always set Star Wars apart. Mm-hmm. And this was something that they put in this movie based on a character from the animated portion of the holiday special, the infamous holiday special, that has become so intrinsically essential to the Star Wars universe. Yeah. Bounty hunters.
Right.
Like, even when you go to Disney now, it's like you can be a rebel, you can be part of the Empire, or you can be a bounty hunter. It has become that level of important to the universe, and it all started right here with these fools.
And in particular, Boba Fett.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything where there's a character introduced that has so little that inspires so much.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't do very much. But man, whether it's his design or the toys or whatever, people, from my son to every kid I know, loves Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And when you really try and break it down, I mean, when you've got this whole lineup of IG-88 and Bosk and Boba Fett and all the guys, they're all pretty badass, and somehow Boba Fett stands out.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing that really does make him stand out is that he is to Han Solo as Darth Vader is to Luke Skywalker. Like I was saying, Han Solo, throughout this entire movie, comes up...
Boba Fett is Han Solo's father?
Yes. No, Boba Fett is Jango Fett's son.
I mean...
But I'm saying, like, throughout this entire movie, Han Solo is the guy that finds out the weird, like, he hides in a cave, he hides in the trash, like, he's a down and dirty guy. And so much so that Darth Vader even isn't really like, Han Solo in a way is like a step ahead of Vader in some of these things, but Boba Fett knows exactly what the fuck this guy's gonna do,
right?
And I think that's what made him so cool.
And of course, Han Solo has come out of the asteroid field. They're suddenly in a big fight with the with these destroyers, and okay, that's no problem. We're just going to jump to light speed. Nope.
It's
not fair.
Transfer circuits are working. It's not my fault.
No light speed.
It's not my fault.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault. And then then his decision is turn it around. Let's have all the power to the front shields. And of course, 3PO is saying what are the odds of actually attacking one of these destroyers? And on the destroyer, they're looking to fire at them, and the Falcon has disappeared.
Yeah. And they're hiding underneath.
And Vader demands an update, and our new admiral, since the other one has been killed, says, I will go tell him personally and apologize.
These poor guys.
I know,
it really
right?
is.
And it is an amazing thing that they do in this movie that Darth Vader is super badass and everyone's afraid of him, and it comes across as threatening, and it does make Darth Vader super badass, and they also manage to get comedy out of it.
They do.
I feel like there's a play that you could write based on all these guys as they get together and talk about, like, oh, you got assigned to Vader. Dude, Tom.
You're fucked.
Shit. Like this whole thing, right? And then one by one, they each get assigned to it till there's like one guy left. That's the whole play. Is they're all trying to figure out like how to get out of being assigned to Vader's fucking shit.
Well, and definitely don't get promoted.
Yeah, don't.
Just
because it's quick promotion.
Yeah.
And you can't even say no.
Yeah. No, it's scary.
And this is the amazing Princess Leia, you do have your moments moment.
Yeah.
Like they literally just get let go with the trash.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's a beautiful moment. And I think another reason why Boba Fett is cool. And then Slave One also pops out of there and follows him. And that's just a badass looking ship.
It's a really cool design.
Like, it's just cool.
Everything about Boba is cool in the ship, too. It's the armor, it's the colors, it's the Mandalorian crest. It's all of it that makes it feel, and that he doesn't talk that much. Silent.
Yeah.
When all those bounty hunters are standing around, he knows what he's doing. Movement of purpose. And everyone else is like, he's like doing his thing. And I think that's the mysticism of him,
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. We're back to training. Luke is doing a handstand. He's got Yoda on one foot. He's lifting up some rocks. But then he gets distracted because the ship starts sinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he loses balance. He falls down, and he's now like, oh, we're never going to get out now. And Yoda's basically like, why don't you lift it up? And Luke goes, come on. That's huge.
Get out of here with this business.
Come on, I can't do that. And he tries, and he fails. This next moment is so cool. And the music is cool, and the effect is cool. The performance from Frank Oz and his team on Yoda is amazing.
No, this is like a perfect movie moment, top to bottom.
Yeah, it is.
And it gets that thing, and like the thing that we've all said to ourselves, sitting in cubicles trying to get through our days, do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah.
It is literally one of the most essential moments and quotes of all Star Wars, but it is you don't believe you can do it, so you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes you actually can just try. But yes, do or do not, there is no try. It's a fantastic line.
And he says what? He says,
size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you?
And then Yoda shows him, and Luke is.
And then Luke's reaction is,
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
That's the best. That is just so good.
I love every scene. Every scene on Dagobah is precious, man. It's so good. Yoda's just fantastic. That's why I consider him one of my favorites. Whenever he shows up.
Yeah, he's awesome.
R2's my favorite.
Okay.
He is.
It's because you're a sassy bitch.
I mean, I'm not no.
Where are we going to next, Steve?
Well, fortunately, the Falcon has actually gotten away.
Yeah.
And we're looking for a system that we can go to. And
What?
Where are we going? Bespin? Fucking Bespin, Steve?
Oh, this is it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to yell. I don't mean to yell, Steve.
it's gonna haunt you forever, huh?
It's gonna really be a problem for you for life.
Yeah. It's just
The number of comments you're gonna get on this on this podcast out of we finally hit Bespin. Maybe now you'll get it.
So yes, well, actually, I think it's called Lando.
Lando.
Lando system.
Lando system.
Right.
Lando system.
Lando's not a system.
He's a scoundrel. You'd like him.
To be fair, he only says it once in the movie. So, you know.
To be fair, I know Bespin.
Okay, fine.
I didn't know Bestman.
Thanks, Steve.
But we've established that I don't really actually know this stuff very well.
Son of a bitch.
So I'm not a good thing to compare it
Doesn't
to.
help my case.
And this question of can we trust Lando definitely gets left a little bit up in the air as we head off to Bespin.
Chewie has some opinions on it.
He does.
Now Luke is doing even better. He's doing the handstand. He's lifting up some big stuff. He's doing really well. He even lifts up R2, and then
R2 doesn't like it.
no, R2 doesn't like anything that's gone on.
R2 is like, I should have stayed on Hoth.
And Yoda's telling him, the Force will let you control things. It helps you see the future, the past. You'll have visions, and suddenly Luke has a vision and sees Han and Leia, and everything falls down, including poor R2. He says they were in pain, and Yoda says the future you see, and now we have the choice. And while Luke's contemplating that, we cut back to the Falcon. They're flying into Cloud City, which is beautiful design. They're being forced down by some other ships. He's asking about Lando. Nobody really is answering. We land. We're getting out of the ship. Nobody shows up. Where's Lando? And then out walks Billy D. Williams.
Yeah.
He is so cool in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, like, Lando Calrissian walks out, and he is the smoothest, coolest, like, he just so iconically awesome in this movie.
That's why Billy D. pissed they haven't used him yet in the new trilogy.
Yeah, well, he's awesome.
They trotted him out for that 50th, and he was not a happy man. Sitting out there watching Han get all the love, and he's like, shit. Because he is as cool, if not cooler than Han Solo.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, I think he is cooler.
Yeah.
Well, he's definitely...
Because he don't have that insecurity gene.
No,
Yeah.
that's my point, is that Han actually has this, like, kind of insecure, scruffy, I'm not really comfortable in my own skin. He walks out with his cape and his mustache and his hair, and he is like, he could convince anyone of anything.
Right. And he immediately goes for Leia.
He's the cooler, better Han, and he immediately is like, who is this?
Yes, right. There's no games being played here. Lando puts it on the table right immediately.
Well, we also find out that he used to own the Falcon.
Yeah.
That's how Han got the Falcon.
Such a great bit.
And we welcome them in, and everything seems good. And 3PO is falling behind, as he usually does, and kind of gets distracted and sees another 3PO, another droid,
Another protocol droid,
and then he goes into some place and he starts screaming and he gets blown into pieces.
which led to legit my favorite toy growing up. When C-3PO came out with the original Star Wars toys, it was just C-3PO, but the C-3PO that you got when Empire Strikes Back came out came apart.
Oh, awesome.
And Chewie came with a little black bag,
Yeah, I
and you
remember
could
that one.
put all the
I think I remember
C-3PO
this,
parts in the bag, just like in the movie.
I remember that.
Here's a quick behind-the-scenes story that I love. So they're shooting in London, and Carrie Fisher is staying at Eric Idle's house in London because Eric Idle is away in Tunisia shooting Life of Brian while this is going on. And the night before they shot this scene where they arrive at Cloud City and meet Billy D. Williams, Eric Idle had come back and was back at his house and said, hey, let's have a party. And they have the Rolling Stones and George Harrison over, and apparently got completely plowed on something that she called Turkish, I forget what it was, Turkish drain cleaner or something like that. Whatever this, I don't know if it was alcohol or what. And so, and Harrison Ford was there too. And so they were all still drunk and smiling when they shot the Meet Billy D. Williams scene.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and now we're back on Dagobah, and Luke has really made the decision to leave. And this is where not only is Yoda going to try to talk to him, but the vision of Obi-Wan Kenobi appears and is also trying to talk about him.
And they're like, do not go, yo.
Yeah. And this is the thing. If you leave now, he could help them, but you will destroy everything they have fought for and suffered through. See, and this is where this goes. This is why I brought up the thing about does he really have the dark side? The perception of Yoda and of Ben is that if he goes on this thing, he will give into the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I kind of go, the fact that we've never really seen dark side with him, it's sort of like, why are they making this big prediction? And to your point,
I think
their
it's
past
more,
experience.
To me, I think it's their past experience, and more I think it's just that he's not ready to deal with this.
Right.
He's unprepared. And if they are both banking on, I think you're the one who's going to bring balance to the Force, and whether you're going to turn to the dark side or be destroyed, or this is just going to fuck you up so you can never complete your training, this is a bad move. This is a bad move all around. Now, I always had problem with this as a kid because, and this is clearly like carried into the way I handle life as an adult, is if I had that vision, I'd be on that X-Wing and gone.
Of course,
like I'd be like, I'm out. I'm out, Yoda. I gotta go.
Your friends are in danger. They're gonna,
These are my ride or die homies. I gotta go.
You know what it is? I just figured out what my issue is that the way I always perceived what Yoda and Ben were talking about is that they have been given clairvoyance into the future, and that they are actually seeing what is about to happen.
Yeah.
And because of that, what they're predicting doesn't really happen at all. And so it doesn't lead to a huge, terrible destruction, Luke going there. In fact, it doesn't have a lot of consequences. And so, which we'll talk about when we get to the end. But if they're just humans that are just thinking about stuff based on their previous experience with Anakin, then all of this makes sense.
And also, Yoda literally just said the future is always moving and changing.
Exactly.
So whatever they have seen in their visions is neither more or less accurate than what Luke saw.
Yeah. Right. And then, but Luke is going.
Yeah.
So Luke is like, no, I have to go, which, I think we agree. I would go too. And there's this moment.
Yeah.
You're still thinking about it.
It would depend on who's in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, he said, the future's all right. You're fine. Fine, I'd go.
And as the ship leaves, there's this wonderful glow that fades to dark and then comes back.
Told you I did. Reckless to see. Now, matters are worse.
That boy is our last hope.
No. There is another.
So this trips me out because this is the whole thing. We were talking about this before that I'm like, well, Leia kissed Luke, so they didn't know they were gonna do that. But then they're like, there's another, and I was like, well, but wait, did they know?
That's what I'm thinking too. I had the same thought.
Because it's like, or did they have some other thought about that? And then when they were figuring out Jedi, they were like, no, we'll do this. But it's like, did they know?
So
Yoda knew.
Here's what. We've always assumed that Leia is the other they were talking about. That's never confirmed anywhere.
That's true. That's true.
Is that what Lucas says? The reason, and I don't know, I don't necessarily believe this either. This is what Lucas said. He says the reason they put that line in is because they wanted to create mystery about whether or not Luke would survive. And so they put it in order to create more tension, which I don't think it does that at all. And it's also, it makes you go, who's the other?
Yeah.
And the other thing that occurred to me recently is like, well, is Rey the other?
Oh, well, don't even get me started. The whole, I have a whole opinion on what it means to actually bring balance to the Force. Right. And I got a bunch of opinions on that, but I don't want to say anything until 24 hours from now.
Right.
But I
look forward to that conversation so much.
But I do not know that Luke is necessarily the one that does ultimately bring balance to the Force or not. But that's a whole bigger philosophical conversation.
Well, and the thing too, and again, this goes to my point of why I really do like Jedi, but why I don't think it delivers as much as I want it to, is when you say, no, there is another in the second movie, you need to reveal what that means in the third movie.
Well, they do.
Yoda
says it. There is another Skywalker just before he dies. He says it.
Oh, he does.
So he lets Luke know.
They lay it out.
Right, but we don't do anything with that. Leia, there is nothing done with Leia being...
You know what? I love that you have sat here and said there's nothing that would lead Luke to the dark side. I don't understand why Luke would go to the dark side. And then the one thing that actually almost brings Luke to the dark side, you're like, oh, we didn't do anything with that. The only thing that makes Luke go to the dark side and go crazy in Jedi is when Darth Vader is like in his mind using the Force, and he's like, "Sister,
yes,
you have a sister. If you won't join me, perhaps she will." And he's like, "No!" And that's the closest he ever comes to going to the dark side.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Whew!
I'm glad you let that out. I'm glad you let that out, man.
All right,
building up inside of me.
No, but that moment is great, and you're right. Who could he mean? Right? It's open to interpretation, but I think it's a great piece of mystery. And the red lighting on him is a dark red lighting, and what does that mean?
And we're back to Cloud City, and
oh, by the way, one of the other great changes they made when they redid the version was in the original movie, Cloud City was a closed off bunch of white walls, and they went in and digitally made them all glass so that you could actually see the clouds of Bespin.
Right.
And I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's beautiful, and it makes the whole thing look amazing.
Yeah. And we're having a nice conversation. It sounds like the Falcon's almost finished, so I guess that's going to work. We're not going to have any problems with that again. Leia's worried about C-3PO, who's disappeared, although they're not that worried.
But like Leia is questioning the whole thing with Lando from the beginning.
She doesn't trust him.
She doesn't trust him. So
Right.
I know you said earlier in the podcast, Han Solo's making all the right moves. She's telling him the whole time, like, we got to get the fuck out of here. This is not the right situation.
You are correct. Han does have a blind spot where his buddy is concerned.
I think because he sees Lando as almost... I think because he sees Lando as a bit of a mentor. A bit of a mentor.
Oh,
he's better at the game. Because he even says, look at you, like you're in charge of a city and you're doing like, because they used to run and gun together.
Oh yeah, we just made a deal that'll keep me. Yeah, you did.
And again, we go to this point of this scene ends with the Falcon's almost fixed, and Leia kind of goes, and then you're going to be gone, right?
Right. She puts it on the table.
Yeah, and that and there's this moment of still this tension between them. We now know it's kind of been admitted that they are into each other because they have that great kiss.
Yeah.
But there's still this tension of like, who is he going to be? Is he going to stick around or not?
Right.
And then Chewie goes off and he's looking around for parts, and he finds those pieces of C-3PO.
And actually, back to your original point of the way droids are treated and how, like, whatever. Again, clearly Chewie, C-3PO to him is not just a replaceable droid, because he gets the parts and he's like, this is my boy. I'm going to put him together. He fights off those Ugnaughts to get 3PO.
And he comes back and he has all the pieces, and that's when Lando shows up. And even it's again, first of all, he's immediately macking on Leia.
Yeah.
And then also, having trouble with your droid?
Yeah.
Even in Betrayal, my man got time to Mac. Even in Betrayal.
You do really, when you really think about the timeline of this, it is kind of hilarious is that he has already sold them out.
Yeah, so already.
The Empire's there.
Right.
And he still takes the time to hit on the person
who
that he has sold out. That's a baller move.
That's a baller move.
Who Lando really is he's a little more mysterious. Because there's some degree where I feel like he sold them out because he actually is a responsible leader of this whole city that he's trying to protect. But then the flirting with Leia during it is sort of like...
And also, Lando, and again, a lot of the ancillary stuff I've read in comics and whatever kind of lead to this too, but like, and Lando does say this in the movie, he thinks that they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
He thinks that if they give him this guy, he's going to get his friends will be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
So
he doesn't know this Luke guy.
He doesn't know Skywalker, right?
Yeah, he doesn't know who's
Skywalker.
Yeah, so he again, it's a shitty move, and it does bite him in the ass. But he thought in his mind, as he was betraying his friends, I'm betraying them, and this is shitty. But at the end, it'll be okay because I'm Lando. I'm going to come out on top, and my friends will be cool.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly what and he's telling them, I recently made we're not going to have problems with the Empire because I recently made this great deal, and if we open up the door.
We would be honored if you would join us.
One of my favorite scenes, and the second best Chewbacca roar of all time.
Yeah.
Like the Hoth one is pretty good, but this one is
the anger, the revenge.
Han draws fast and is immediately shooting at Darth, who, and again, with the forces expanding, what can do? Blocks it with his hand, rips the blaster with some force pull out of Han's hand. It's like, and Darth Vader standing up in that all white rectangular dining room at the end of the table is just awesome.
It's fantastic.
It's a great
Although
moment.
I did see a meme somewhere that was wondering like why Lando set the table for the betrayal. Like why? So you put out the whole table, you did the whole thing, be like, and then doesn't Boba Fett step into the shot? Like
from behind.
again, being like badass, like I'm gonna stand next to Darth Vader because I'm cool like that. Like
and Boba Fett's not really that intimidated by Darth Vader, which we'll see a couple of times.
Right.
Again, I think one of the reasons that his
stock goes
his stock goes way up.
Luke is almost there. Chewie, we're in some kind of prison. There's some sort of really weird sound that Chewie is screaming at. I don't know why they gave him all the C-3PO parts, but they did. He's got them in prison with him, and he starts to put them back together. And we hear the first voice where C-3PO's voice comes back and kind of calls out his last moment when he got blown up.
Stormtroopers!
Yeah. We're going to torture Han with this weird, creepy, awful machine.
Dude, I forget. You always forget about this.
I totally forgot about this.
You forget
too.
about the scream.
Yeah.
You forget about
the
it. And he
scream.
keeps screaming.
Yeah.
And
Which is very reminiscent
and then-
of Force Awakens when Ren's trying to torture Rey.
And then you get the that they didn't even ask him anything.
Yes.
They legit just tortured him to do it.
Yeah.
Which is also happens in New Hope when they bring that mind probe in to torture Leia. You don't hear Leia screaming, but you know some shit went down in that cell. That's how they get away with making it PG-13 and bastards.
And Lando's pissed because they've changed the deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a shock.
Yeah. Don't make Darth Vader. He kills every guy that disappoints him. C-3PO gets put back together backwards.
Is not really grateful about being saved. He's just more pissed that he got put back together backwards.
And Lando comes in and he's trying to explain. He tells him that they're after Luke. Han punches Lando, and he's kind of like, "Look, I did what I could.
I've done all I can. I'm sorry I couldn't do better, but I got my own problems."
Yeah. You're a real hero.
And I think you do have some. I think you feel the grayness, the gray areas of his morality.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because that is a character that when you really think about it now, like, he shouldn't be likable. You should hate him. And I don't know if it's just Billy D or what it is, but like, you still are like, okay, you betrayed them, but you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does come around.
Well, he does, but also when you're younger, you're angry at him because you love these characters. Some of your child, you don't understand this whole concept. When you get older, you're like, oh, this makes sense. When you're a leader, sometimes, like, what's
did what he
more
had to
important,
do.
the needs of the many or the needs of the few?
Luke shows up. There's this. We hear about the carbon freezer and that we're going to test it on Captain Solo. And we go into the carbon freezer. Lando doesn't like the idea because he doesn't want it to kill his friend.
Yeah.
Chewie is freaking out.
Yep.
Han settles him down, and and the way of settling him down is to say, "You're going to have to take care of the princess."
Yep.
Yeah.
And he and Leia have a kiss.
I love you.
I know.
Finally, right at the moment of possible death, do they fucking finally put down the walls, those two idiots, and they have a legitimate romantic moment between them. She finally tells him how she really feels about him. And of course, because he's a swaggering son of a bitch, he just says, I know.
Which was not the line.
No.
Yeah.
It was an improv line.
Yeah, not as written. Like, that's...
But it worked so well.
And it's the best line in the world.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we've been having this long discussion about these two people and how they feel, is that Han has known the whole time that he loves her.
Right.
And that he's been trying throughout this whole movie to get her to admit how she feels. And so, although it was an improv line, it actually is a perfect capper of everything we've gone through. I love you. I know.
And it's perfect in his personality, for his character, right? But I think that moment where he tells Chewie, you got to take care of the prince, that's his moment of love for her.
Yeah.
And so I think that also fuels her to say what she says to him in that moment because she knows he does care about her.
And they lower him down into this freezing pit, huge smoke and steam, and we see Han frozen in carbonite.
Oh, man.
It's the second carbonite, by the way. The first one they made, he was kind of just sleeping. He looked very peaceful. His hands were by his sides. And Kirshner was like, no.
Yeah.
He has to be screaming. He has to be fighting. Yeah. And it's so cool.
I love the head shot of him just as it's like the pain in his face as he's turning. It really sells it.
I got to see it too. the real carbonite.
Nice.
Because we had a friend who was working at the ranch at Skywalker Ranch.
Oh, I've seen it too. I have a picture with it.
And it is
there?
cool.
Yeah,
it's there.
Do they give you tours so you can walk to the ranch or no?
Well, if you got to know someone.
You have to know someone. So the person who knows you.
Well, I know you two. Doesn't that help?
No, I don't work.
We don't work there.
But no, the person who knows you takes you up there, and you're sort of their person, and then they can walk you around, and like they just literally have like these props just
everywhere.
There
was Indiana Jones's whip, and there were lightsabers, and also like Norman Rockwell paintings and like original we could spend a whole podcast. It is a magical place.
It's pretty awesome.
Anybody listening to the Cine-Files who works at Skywalker Ranch, please, I would like a tour.
You deserve a tour. You would love it.
Thank you.
We find out that he is alive. He still has life signs. And so it seems like this...
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Steve, let me ask you a question. Both of you a question, because it occurred to me this time. Do you think Lando is programming that... Like, he messes with the buttons on the side.
Oh, it never occurred to me.
So is he messing with it, knowing that he is going to find a way to go rescue Han later, and it keeps Han alive longer, or makes him come out of the carbonite quicker when they have to do it? Because Leia's the one that puts him out of the carbonite using what she uses in Jedi. Do you think Lando set the thing a certain way so that Leia could get him out of the carbonite quicker when she goes to rescue him?
No.
Okay.
It never occurred to me. I don't think it quite tracks, because Lando didn't know that he was going to go after Han.
You don't think he has an idea that he's going to go after Han?
I don't know.
I do.
I think in the moment he doesn't know what's going to happen.
So why does he check the buttons? What the fuck does he care?
Make sure he's okay.
Why does he care?
He likes Han. It's his friend.
He's bummed about what happened.
Okay.
I don't think that Lando. I have two opinions. I have an opinion on what I think they were doing in the movie when they did that.
Yeah.
And then I have an opinion of like in my Star Wars headcanon what I think happened.
Right.
Like I think in real life they're making the movie and they're like, yeah, and then you check and make sure it's fine because your buddy, you feel bad what happened. Because we've said in the script that you feel bad about it, so just check and make sure. The opinion that I have of Lando Calrissian as a character, like he doesn't know what's going to happen to Han, but if he was going to do something to like be like, if I can find him later, this will help, then maybe.
That's what I think, because
that's headcanon stuff. That's not
sure. Then that's fair. But Lando's always one or two steps ahead, man. He's always one or two in everything. From Rebels to the comic books to everything to the books, and Lando's always two steps ahead, man.
Well, not of Vader, because Vader is once again changing the deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Vader's a chess master, man.
Well, I don't know if he's playing chess or just playing fuck you.
Well,
yeah, he alters the deal, and we already see that Lando seems to have some kind of plan. He's working. So you're right.
Yeah, his buddy Lobot, who is badass.
Lobot's a badass.
Lobot is very, very cool.
I would like a whole backstory on Lobot.
I'm sure it's got to be in some comic book somewhere. And here comes Luke, and I love that they almost see each other. Like Lando doesn't. I don't think Lando actually sees Luke. I think he almost sees Luke. So they kind of pass by each other.
Okay, so while they're leading them out, we see Luke see them, Boba Fett leading Han and Carbonite out, and Boba Fett sees Luke. He passes by at first. Luke thinks he hasn't been seen, and then Boba Fett leans out and starts shooting. They shoot back and forth, all this kind of stuff, and it goes around. Chewie gets involved, and then they grab Leia. But when they grab Leia, she says something to Luke. She says, "It's a trap."
Yeah.
It's a trap. And I think that's what prepares Luke to be ready when Vader's... Like, he's already ready that something's going to happen with Vader.
And then he comes in, and there's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And this is what we've been waiting for. And I love the Force is strong with you, young Skywalker.
That was good.
Thank you. But you're not a Jedi yet. That's so good, and they have they draw lightsabers, and I love that. I don't know if you can control the speed at which your lightsaber comes out, but Darth's comes out slow. And what's interesting, they start the lightsaber battle, and one of the things, great small detail, is that Luke is using two hands and Darth is using one.
Yes.
I think that is that's just little details that just make it so much better.
Well, and it's something we talked about. Sorry, but something we talked about on the New Hope podcast was that you sort of culminates in this Obi-Wan Darth Vader lightsaber battle, but since they didn't know where they were going at the time, how big things were gonna get, like it's not the most epic of battles. No. It's Alec Guinness was getting old, and it's like here they were like, we're just gonna go ahead and make up for all of that.
Yeah, totally, because we're gonna get into it, and it's gonna happen in many sections as we go back and forth. Because now we go back to they're the stormtroopers with Leia and Chewie and 3PO and Lando and his guy trapped them, and Leia's going, what the hell is going on? And Lando has now kind of made the turn that we wanted him to make. Like, we did like him. And now he's going to help them. And what does Chewie do as soon as he's free?
It chokes him.
Starts choking him.
So great.
And C-3PO, of course, is like, well, trust him.
Yeah. But then Leia, without missing a step, is almost like Chewie's her henchman.
Yeah.
'Cause she leans over and she's like, we're gonna trust you. Like, tell us all about it, you know.
And he says there's still a chance to say Han.
Yes.
And off they go to try to rescue Han from Boba's ship. And they do not make it in time.
No.
But who they do find is R2-D2.
Yeah.
And I love C-3PO's line, at least you're still in one piece. Look what happened to me. And here comes some stormtroopers, and we go back to the lightsaber fight. It's funny. Luke, at the beginning of this fight, is cocky.
Yes.
And he doesn't really get that Darth Vader is really just playing with him at the beginning of the fight. Is not really giving him some respect.
It's the arrogance of youth.
Yeah, and he says you'll find I'm full of surprises, and then immediately gets disarmed.
Yeah.
He backs him up into the freezing pit. He falls in, and Darth Vader is, all too easy. Presses the button.
Boom.
Luke shoots out of that
and
pit.
it's such a crazy
It's like a Superman moment.
Yeah.
It is so cool. Impressive. And he knocks the thing down. The steam gets in his face. He gets his lightsaber. And I love that Darth Vader's line is, Obi-Wan has taught you well. That is so cool because he doesn't know about Yoda.
Right. Exactly. Which, again, particularly rewatching this stuff with all of the prequels and everything else in my head, that makes, the prequels are a mixed bag, and half the time you watch stuff and you're like, this doesn't quite track.
Right.
And every once in a while there's stuff that's like, oh, Anakin, you don't know that Yoda's on Dagobah? Oh, shit.
Yeah. And Luke ends up down in this tunnel that kind of lights up, which made me think about the cave, and I wonder if that was conscious.
I think it was.
Yeah. And he still seems to be confident, and we hear the breathing first, and again, here comes giant Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And instead of just attacking him with his lightsaber, he uses the Force.
And just hurls shit at it.
Yeah. And
sends him out that window.
I also had this diecast toy of this whole battle where you could you would hit the thing and then the thing exploded, and then Luke, you pressed a little button and the little metal Luke would fly out of the thing.
That's great. And he backs Luke up. Luke has no ability to deal with what's happening now.
Right.
And he blows him right out of this window.
Nor should he.
Yeah.
Nor should he. This is a master Jedi who's been fighting for a long time.
Right.
The Sith Lord.
Yeah, back with the stormtroopers and Leia, they're fighting them off. They're trying to get through some door. R2-D2 tries to override the security. Again, we see his Swiss Army knife powers, except this time doesn't work.
R2, listen, he does a lot, you guys. You need to cut him some slack. It doesn't work every time. R2 might be the most valuable member of this whole team, including Luke. I'm just telling you, R2 is.
No, absolutely.
If I was in a jam and I could choose one of these people to be with me, I'm choosing R2-D2.
Isn't it in Greek theater? What do they call that? The Deus Ex Machina, where God comes down and solves the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Luke, R2 is kind of like that. He's
Astro Machina.
He's Astro Machina. Like anytime there's a problem, you just
Forces
lower him
Ex
into
Machina.
it. Yeah.
That's good. But in this moment, he wants to tell R2 that the city computer told him something about the hyperdrive, and 3PO does exactly to R2 what Han has been doing to him.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the hyperdrive. It's fixed. They get some doors open, and they make it over to the Falcon, and they get in, have a little comedy with Chewie and C-3PO getting in, and the Falcon takes off, and they're gone.
Yeah.
Luke, on the other hand, is on this weird fin-shaped thing in the middle of the city in the kind of infinite fall sort of area. It is a really, really cool design.
Because all floating cities have to have that giant hole in the middle that just...
It is so cool. And Darth comes out of nowhere. And the way they shot it, he just looks like a giant.
Yeah.
And Luke is completely overmatched.
Well... He manages to strike a blow at Vader.
He does. He hits him on the shoulder, upper arm, yeah.
And that's when Vader goes apeshit and slices his fucking hand off.
Yeah.
Like, he's done playing. Like, when the second he touched him, which is what we see all the time, right? We see in samurai films, we see in all these, like, when they're toying with the...
It's all cool until you actually got a jab in.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, all right. And then boom. So then he ends up on this thing. So he's got his hand cut off. He's like on this very precarious position, climbing away from Vader.
And he's driven back to the very end. And then we get the moment. He's saying, come join me on the dark side. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
And then but like what I read this somewhere. Somebody told me about this, but like, so they didn't want everybody to know on set.
Yeah.
That what the big reveal was.
They didn't want anyone to know in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the actor on set says, "I killed your father."
No.
No, he did.
No, he said Obi-Wan killed your father.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah.
And so that was like the big reveal. The only person who actually knew at the time was Mark. They told Mark Hamill the truth, so
an hour before,
so that he would have the right reaction. And then James Earl Jones, when he recorded the actual line,
right,
because he actually recorded the line. But I always thought that was fascinating that they were like, the crew is not going to know, like nobody's going to know this.
Well, and
this was before the era of spoilers and Twitter and like phones and like.
Yeah, and this is among the most shocking reveals in the history of film.
I would put it, I guess you're right. Maybe number one. Maybe.
It might be.
You could argue.
Well, it's so funny because now it's so known and so...
Right.
It's like the big joke of the I am your father. But yeah, like when this happened, this was the... What the... I think like the audience had the exact same reaction as Luke.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
No. It's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
And I remember being in class in 5th or 6th grade or whatever I was at that time, and someone spoiling it for another kid in the class, and him just going, "What? No, you can't. No." And it was like the first time I'd ever seen. Spoiler alert,
It's the first ever recorded troll.
Yeah.
That troll right there.
It was just crazy.
But everything about this scene is fantastic, Steve, right? And Michael, like, you don't know the power. Like, all of you know how deep he is into it.
Yeah.
And when you factor, because to me, watching it again, like, I factored even more the prequels of what Anakin is doing when he gets turned, all this kind of stuff. You can see this is what he becomes, right? This whole kind of, he is so obsessed with, and what is this idea of ruling together? Why? Is it the power of two? Is it that legendary power of two in Star Wars? He says we can kill the Emperor and rule the universe together. Kill the Emperor, rule the universe together. What is that about? Is that the way it works with the Sith Lords? Is that what has to happen?
That is the way it works with the
There we go.
Well, and I think, and this gets into a whole other stuff, but like, I think he hates the Emperor. I think that's what, and this idea of what he's offering him,
right,
makes sense to Darth Vader.
Well, and again, it's
I know.
Pre-prequel, post-prequel. Given what happens in the prequels, for better or for worse, and whether you like it or not, he does hate the Emperor because the Emperor straight up lied. He loved Padme. Padme went and had those kids. Emperor said everybody dead. Luke Skywalker's existence is proof that the Emperor lied to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he fucking hates that guy.
Yeah. Does Luke give in to the dark side?
No.
He lets go. And it's funny. I know this is silly, but what does Obi-Wan Kenobi tell Luke to do at the end of A New Hope? Let go.
Yeah.
And that is what he does right now.
That's great,
Just
Steve.
Let's go.
Well,
That's
and
great.
and like you're like he could, it's like, I mean, granted, I don't know that he really could fight at this point. He's got no hand and like things are not going well for him. But it's he did get a little bit of that, like, you don't fight, don't be angered, don't give into that. Just disengage, like I'm out.
Yeah. Well, and what did Yoda say? He asked Yoda, "How will I know what choice to make?" And Yoda says, "When you're calm, when your mind is calm and you're free of fear." And that you see this moment of sort of, just him kind of calmly going no when he lets go, and he falls down what looks like the most fun, water slide of all time. Just goes down that chute, ends up at apparently the bottom of the city, has this little perch, and he's hanging on it. And this is geographically and emotionally the low point. Yeah. You cannot get any lower than he is right now.
Yeah.
And he calls for Ben.
He just calls for Ben.
Yeah.
And then this is interesting, right? The call for Leia.
You know what? God damn it. I feel like I'm making a turn.
They had to know.
They had to know because like that's not a like I'm calling for my girlfriend moment. Like he calls to Leia and then Leia hears him because it's got the Force.
Yeah.
No, do you think Luke knows Han is in that's Han in carbonite? Even though he was far away, does he know Han is in carbonite?
No, I don't
So why
think
doesn't
so.
he call for Han? They had established that relationship too. He only calls for Leia.
Yeah, I think you know what? Maybe they.
It's a Force thing.
It's a Force thing. I think so too.
So I think they did know, but I think they were innocent about the kiss. I think they were just innocent about the kiss.
that's what I
I need
think.
to
too.
give myself, I'm gonna
And
give
they
myself
knew
a
before.
T-shirt that says "It's a Force thing."
And of course, she feels him and says Luke and goes, "We have to go back."
Yep.
And Lando's like, well, "Go back? We just got away."
I love Chewie's reaction. Well, okay.
Yeah.
He's so good, Billy D, in this film, man.
And Darth is heading back to the destroyer, and the Falcon goes to pick up Luke. And I love the way they did the hatches opening up and Lando coming up.
That's great.
It's really cool looking.
Him latching on and
Yeah.
grabbing him and all that.
And Luke, the way he drops, it just looks very painful.
Oh yeah.
The way he drops down. Darth arrives back at the Star Destroyer on the Falcon. We are ready for light speed. Now or never. Punch it. It's not my fault. It's a great callback again. And again, we've got the boarding party coming, and we have one more big action sequence. And C-3PO is begging R2-D2 to just put my leg back on, but instead R2-D2 goes and repairs the hyperdrive.
Because R2-D2 is the best.
He is. And I love that as this is happening, is that Luke's lying in bed, and
He's having this conversation with Darth Vader.
Yeah,
right?
with his dad.
Well, first, yeah, Darth is reaching out to Luke, and you could feel the power of something's happening, you
Right.
know, to call, seems like he's trying to call him back.
Well, also, he says to Ben, why didn't you tell me?
Why didn't you tell me?
And that never gets resolved, by the way, right? It doesn't get resolved in Jedi,
And
does
Yoda
it?
doesn't tell him either.
That whole weird different point of view conversation. I was telling you the truth from a different point of view. No, you were not, Ben.
Yeah. I mean, this seems like
No, Ben!
if you wanted to protect Luke from going to the dark side,
Yeah.
lying to him about and you know he's going to face Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You're like, maybe you should give him a heads up.
Yeah. Even Yoda didn't. Yoda knew, and Yoda didn't
tell
say
him.
anything.
Yeah. It's a little bit weird. But we do manage to fix the hyperdrive. We do manage to fly away at the last possible moment, finally. And we were with the Rebel fleet.
Much to Vader's anger and disappointment, which he
Chagrin.
turns, chagrin, yes, chagrin, because he turns and that admiral's like, "Oh God, am I gonna die? Am I gonna die?" That's great.
I don't think Darth Vader's management style is really that effective.
Do you want to hear a great comedy bit based on this? Listen to Eddie Izzard when he talks about being on the Death Star, and Vader comes down to get lunch at the camp at the. I mean,
I think I've heard this.
This is so. It's like a 6-minute bit. It is absolutely brilliant because he wants his impulse when he doesn't get what he wants is to choke whoever the person is. Like the tray's wet, the tray's too wet. He goes, "This is wet, and then he wants to choke the tray, and then he says, this guy asks him a question. He goes, "Who are you?" He goes, "I'm your boss." He goes, "You're Mr. Stevens?" He goes, "No, I'm not Mr. Stevens. I'm the one who's running this whole thing." It's a brilliant little thing of what can happen. So anyway, go ahead.
All right. So Luke is getting his hand reattached.
Yeah,
which I
which is
thought was
awesome.
super cool. Very similar to what we saw with the Terminator, by the way.
Yeah.
And then we hear that Lando and Chewie are going to go off to look for Han, and we're going to meet in Tatooine, and we kind of have a plan. And we have this sort of last shot of Luke and Leia standing there.
Yeah, that kind of pulls out on the
And it
whole
just
Rebel
kinda
fleet,
pulls out.
and you just see them all there, and that's it. And like, I cannot imagine, because like by the time that I was old enough to appreciate Empire and like really understand what was happening, also
Jedi had come out,
It was
and
Jedi existed. So I mean, I've seen movies here. Like I'm trying to think of like the biggest cliffhanger that's come out. I mean, whether it be Force Awakens or whatever, but nothing quite ends on that. Han's frozen in carbonite. We're gonna go find him. Like
No, it ends on a full low note.
Yeah.
Like Luke just got his ass kicked by Darth Vader. He lost a hand. Han is frozen in carbonite. The Rebel Alliance is kind of off in space. Like it's low.
Yeah, but it's also hopeful because
It is. They do manage.
They're going to go get him. They're back together
They're
again.
together. That's what it really is. Like it's the importance of, and again, this is like, it's so funny because the parallels to like Potter and J.K. Rowling and what she did with those characters, but it's like as bad, and it's a through line through the whole thing. Like Luke leaves because his friends are in danger, Even with Lando, it's like, the way that Lando is like just watching the things that you were talking about. As soon as Han's out of the picture, Chewie's like, I'm taking orders from Leia.
Yeah.
Right. And, watching 3PO and R2-D2 get back together, like, so that final shot, as bad as things are, and they're super bad, Luke and Leia and Chewie and Lando and 3PO, like, it's like, it's like, you're like, okay, like the gang has assembled and has a game plan and they're going to go do this. And yeah, the Empire's crazy. We've got to figure out this whole Luke issue with his dad. Like, there's some thing going down, but the most important thing is we're going to get Han.
I could so understand why Lucas didn't want to be part of the studio, because you can imagine the studio notes when they go to make the sequel, and they are going to say the end of Star Wars when the Death Star blows up was awesome. You have to end this movie with something just as awesome.
Yep.
And this is the opposite. This is going. No, we are going to advance our characters. We're going to set up the next movie.
Then he did do the exact same thing in Jedi as he did in the first one.
Absolutely.
He didn't direct that one either. He didn't direct Jedi.
But it is like
and then J.J. Abrams did it again. In Force Awakens.
Yeah. That one hurts a little bit.
There's 7 of them in. Never mind, I'm joking. 7 Death Stars. They did really.
Is the idea, and it's funny because the only movie I can think of, but that's based on a book, is Two Towers. Has a very downer, but that's like a trilogy from a book,
right?
Where we're okay with that. Maybe Captain America: Civil War has kind of very complicated feelings at the end.
But not
like
once
this.
again, that's all based on stories in the comics anyway as well. So this is singular. This is singular. This has no basis in already written form.
As opposed to
it's amazing.
Die Hard 2, where you resolve it, and Die Hard 3, where you resolve it, and it's like,
I wish they'd resolved it. I wish they just resolved it
to the
after
point
where
Empire Strikes Back has become a descriptor for that point where shit gets real. Like, I remember when I first read Goblet of Fire. When I got done with Goblet of Fire,
that
3 days after I picked it up, like I was like, this book, like I just did nothing but read it, and I got done, and I'm like, holy shit,
that is that kind
this
of
is the Empire Strikes Back of the Harry Potter books,
totally,
because
Harry almost barely survives,
and
there's Voldemort.
It's a shame because that movie's not as good.
I know Goblet of Fire is my least favorite movie, and it's my out of all 8, and it's like my.
I love that book. I think that's my favorite of those books.
My 5th is my favorite, but now we're on Harry Potter, and I will.
And this has gone on too long anyway.
True.
Needless to say, the movie was a big hit. I think we can all agree it made all of Lucas's money back in about a month, $35 million, and then went on to make more and more and more and more.
And still making money.
And it's still making money. And I think Star Wars created the world, but it is Empire that's like the foundation of the franchise.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Yeah. Without Empire, if Empire didn't deliver the way it does, I don't think we have Star Wars the way we do today.
I also think this is fantastically important too. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones, right? The two bands that people always argue about. Star Trek, Star Wars. What are the two best ones? It's the second installment in both franchises of the originals. It's always the second installment that is the best.
Star Trek 4.
Okay. It isn't.
Seriously? Shut up.
I'm just kidding.
As I've watched them now, 6 goes above 4 now in my mind. But it's fascinating that these two franchises that are really like divide the nerd world, it's the second film that is really the linchpin. And they're both downers. Spock dies.
Yeah.
But I think there's something about that. I think that, and look, this is, you're speaking about executives, but I think this is one of the true things of like, everybody loves a happy ending, but nobody loves anything more than an ending that makes you feel and punches you in the gut. And when you love these characters, whether it be Goblet of Fire or Wrath of Khan or Empire Strikes Back, I think when you've seen these people that you've come to love go through shit, and you're dealing with that catharsis, you're dealing with that, like you're processing this because you've just lived through this thing, and particularly when they end and they haven't resolved it for you, you as the audience are left like, you just can't wait. Like, if everything was nice and Han had gotten out and they had said, oh, we're all together, let's have a meal, and next movie we'll get the Empire, you'd leave and you go, okay, cool, I'm excited. But the months and months and years, spent agonizing over, holy shit. I mean, it's what we're dealing with right now, where I'm literally looking at the clock going, all right, so 24 hours from now, I will be getting ready to go to the theater because I fucking can't wait. And
Whereas I've already seen it, so I'm gonna
motherfucker. I'm trying not to look at you when things are being said because I don't even want to see your fucking eyeballs right now because I don't want to know anything.
Well, and this is
going to be a great experience.
This is the thing about there's a Steve Jobs quote that I'm not going to get right, but which is sort of like, why won't Apple give us what we want? Why can't we tell you what we want? And the Steve Jobs response is, well, you don't know what I want until I tell you what you want.
Yeah.
And that's how Apple designs products. We are going to show you what you want. Right. And there's real problems with that philosophy, but you think you want the characters to be happy.
Yeah.
But in fact, what makes movies work is conflict and not getting what you want. That's what makes movies work. And this movie instills that.
Yeah. And nothing inspires water cooler conversation and ending like
exactly.
this that you anticipate. And I think this is what started the whole trend of Star Wars speculation. Like every time anything ends, it's like, what does this mean now? What are we going to do now? Blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah. John Roca.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts?
I'll keep it quick because we've talked for so long. This film is a goddamn classic. And if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen it in a while, re-experience it. It still incredibly holds up. It speaks about so many deeper issues. And it really lays the groundwork of why Star Wars is still one of the most important franchise and properties in the world. Not just because of the incredible characters and the planets and the worlds that people are able to create, whether canon or not canon stories. It's the themes that they explore that are universal, the struggles, the desire to do good, and the complicated things that happen in that pursuit. And I think this film really shows all of that. You can, and it works for you no matter what age you're at. You can relate to a character in the entire film no matter what age you're at. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what's really powerful about this film. You can remember being Luke, but then you as you get older, you start to feel like Yoda a little bit. You start to be more knowledgeable about life and about the world and all these kinds of things. And like Michael was saying earlier, you can understand Lando's point of view in a way that you didn't when you were 11 years old or 12 years old. And that's really important. This film stands the test of time because it is so incredibly rich in detail design and story.
Yeah,
I'm glad you kept that quick. I think everything Roca said is true. I think also the thing that I think is great about this is, when you watch these movies today, sometimes you see these movies that are huge and epic and bigger than you could even imagine, and they expand the universe and they're world builders. And then sometimes you see movies that really just focus on the characters and you fall in love with characters. And this is one of the few movies that does both at 120%, that in the midst of all of this epic mythology and force talk and galaxy-wide battles, you're dealing with these character moments between Chewie and Han and Leia and 3PO and Han and everybody else, and it's just movie magic.
Yeah, for me, I'm a little lost for words. I'm trying to think of my final thoughts, and what I keep coming back to is it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that I love Star Wars. I can remember being in the theater when I first saw A New Hope, and this is what solidifies it. The characters come together at a new level. The special effects come together at a new level. The scope of the movie is at a new level, and this is what, if I think of a moment in Star Wars, the odds are a lot of them come right out of this movie. So that's what we think of The Empire Strikes Back. Of course, we always want to hear what you think, and we might even want to hear what you think about this new movie that's coming out in 24 hours, or will have come out just before we release this podcast.
I'm literally losing my shit right now.
If you want to, you can visit us on Facebook at the Cine-Files, CINE-FILES. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, on what was the newest one?
Spotify.
We're now on Spotify.
Yeah, man.
On YouTube.
We're taking over the world.
You can leave comments for us on all of these places. You can leave reviews on iTunes, and you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thecine-files. You can buy all the movies, including Empire Strikes Back, at our website, cinephiles.net. And as always, you can reach me on Twitter at SRMorris. John, where can they reach you?
You guys can always reach me at The Roca Says, ROCHA, on Twitter and on Instagram. And yeah, this has been an awesome podcast. I had such a great time talking about this film.
Michael, where can they reach you if they'd like to?
My home address is, you can reach me at MKToon on Twitter or Instagram.
Do you have anything coming out? Like any books or any media coming out?
No, I hope you all enjoyed the My Little Pony movie in October, and I have some other things that I can't talk about right now.
Fair.
And writing some scripts on several different animated shows with several of my animated buddies.
Hey-o.
There you go. Well, and that is it for this week. We will see you next time on the Cine-Files.